Chapter 1685. The current Gao Feng was clearly saying that he wouldn't attack anyone else. The rest of you don't have to fight with me. Gao Feng, who was standing in the middle of the exam, was like a starting point. The 400 sequence members used this spot as the center and entrusted their backs to each other. Everyone faced one side and used their phase to defend. At that moment, the 4 former 100 sequence members' phase drew a line not far in front. The meaning was obvious. If anyone crossed this line, they would be attacked by 4 members of the top 100 sequence. In these 3 days of hard work, the few remaining members of the 100 sequence had revealed their full strength. Each of them had a platinum/fantasy breed Fae. And there was more than one. It could be said that these 100 sequence members, they were the top of the candidates in terms of combat power. Now that they were using their phase to defend with all their might, no one dared to cross that line. Once they crossed this line, they would be attacked by the platinum/fantasy breed phase. If everyone attacked together, it would be fine. If one of them stepped forward, they would be hit. They could basically bid farewell to the 100 sequence exam. Right now, the remaining 100 people felt that they had a chance to be selected into the 100 sequence. Once they became a 100 sequence member, not only would they bring glory to their family, but they would also be able to hold their heads high. They would also be able to bring an excellent future to themselves. Once they became a 100 sequence member, the resources they obtained would be completely different from the past. According to the management, within a year of becoming a Radiance 100 sequence member, the Radiance Sacred Hall would pour in at least 50 million Radiance dollars. This amount of resources would allow them to obtain a Bronze/Epic Fae. They would also be able to upgrade this Bronze/Epic Fae into a Platinum/Fantasy breed. Of course, there was a prerequisite. He needed to comprehend a willpower rune himself. Comprehending a willpower rune was a difficult problem for most people. However, it was not difficult for the 140 people present. In fact, many of them already had comprehended a willpower rune in their minds. However, there were no suitable high-quality bronze phase. Becoming a Radiance 100 sequence member was a way to rise to the top. They had fought until now and no one was willing to give up. Li Nao had already changed his clothes and walked out of the yellow sand fitting room. He arrived in front of Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was watching the dispute in the camp through the window of the yellow sand castle. Li Nao walked to Lin Yuan's side and stood side by side with him. Lin Yuan had already stored Li Nao in the yellow sand castle. He had already stored Red Thorn into the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Otherwise, Li Nao would be staring blankly at Red Thorn, who had not advanced to the mythical stage but had 3 pairs of wings. He would not be able to analyze the situation in the battlefield. Black, no one can break through the wind wall that Gao Feng used in the central region. Gao will be able to obtain a spot. Zhang Zihao, Du Su, and Su will be able to be stronger than the rest. The 4 of them have the geographical advantage. Therefore, I should be able to obtain 4 spots. Including you and me, there are only 3 spots left for the entire assessment. Li have Li Feng. 3 to 5 years. Apart from Black and Gao Feng, Li Nao, Zhang Zihao, Du Su, and the other 5 former Radiance 100 sequence members should be able to snatch a seat. How are the rest going to fight for the remaining 3 seats? The competition is too intense. A young man with a dream? I think so too. In terms of individual strength, Gao Feng, Zhang Zihao, and Du Su can be considered the strongest 5 in the core region. A few of them are similar to Du Su and Zhang Zihao, but if they want to rush to the center region, they will be targeted by the other 4 and will be immediately eliminated. Zhang Zihao, Du Su, and the others are the first to join forces in the core region. What a good plan. Happy Water Source. Du Su and Feng Tsong's Fei abilities are too limited. Feng Tsong's poison-type Fei controls a slow-acting poison. It has area of effect but it takes too long and is not good at defense. Du Su's main Fei, the blade-armored tyrant crocodile, has low intelligence. Once it enters a berserk state, it will not listen to Du Su's commands. Compared to the others, I think Du Su and Feng Tsong are not qualified. Lin Yuan's thoughts were completely different from Li Nao's. He stored Red Thorn into the Spirit Lock spatial zone. The 8 long ribbons of the flower sea in the insect tide had already become rootless sources. The sea of flowers could be adjusted by devouring the alien insects. However, without the energy supply, the sea of flowers would soon be washed away by the insect tide. By then, the pressure in the core region would multiply. Everyone would stake it all and want to occupy a position in the core region. At that time, let alone Zhang Zihao, Du Su, and the other top 100 sequence members. Even if Lin Yuan went down alone, he would definitely be targeted by everyone. In fact, he might not even have to wait for the 8 flower belts to collapse. The defense formed by the 4 of them would be targeted and attacked by the other examinees. In less than 10 minutes, a voice suddenly echoed in the camp. The alien beast tide has become more ferocious than before. According to my phase observation, half of the 8 flower belts have been devoured by the alien insects. Soon the pressure on us will increase greatly. If we don't go to the core region, everyone will be eliminated. Instead of being eliminated just like that, everyone might as well fight for it. This statement immediately stirred up the emotions of the examinees present. There were only over 80 people left now. Instead of fighting for those 3 positions, it was better to drag the 4 top 100 sequence members into the water. Everyone would fight for 7 positions together. At that moment, someone shouted again. In the previous 100 sequence selections, there were only a total of 3 or 4 top 100 sequence members who were selected. But this time, if we let 5 of them return to the ranks of the 100 sequence, doesn't that mean that our batch of newcomers is not strong enough? This is so shameful. These 2 voices made the expressions of Zhang Zihao, Du Su, Feng Tsong, and the others darken. It was obvious that someone wanted to target them and the others. They also knew how to win people's hearts. They borrowed the strength of the group. Before they could speak, many examinees had already used their phase to cross the originally drawn line. They launched an attack on them and the others. Among them, 100 Poison's Feng Tsong, who was ranked 96th in the top 100 sequence, was the most miserable. The main Fae, the blood poison dragon centipede, sprayed all of its poisonous mist. However, these examinees were not afraid of it at all. The blood poison dragon centipede's poison acted on blood. After being infected by the poison for a period of time, the blood would coagulate. The lifeforms would die from blood coagulation. Chapter 1686. When they were fighting against the mutated beast horde, Feng Tsang's group was very strong. There was no need for other combat class spirit chi professionals in Feng Tsong's area. Feng Tsong led a group of defense-type spirit chi professionals and let the blood-venomous drake release poisonous fog in a large area. It infected all the insects and demons in the area. Then, the defense-type spirit chi professionals blocked the attack of the insect horde. In 3 minutes, the insects and demons would die from blood coagulation. If it was before, the candidates would be very afraid of Feng Kong. But now there were only 70 to 80 people left. Not to mention 3 minutes, the battle would end in 2 minutes. No matter how strong Zhang Zihao, Feng Tsong, and the others were, they couldn't fight against so many. Under the group attack of the phase, only Zhang Zihao was strong enough to block the attack. Of the other 3, 2 were directly eliminated. One was beaten until he didn't even have the strength to get up. Soon he was finished off by someone else. Zhang Zihao saw that the others still wanted to attack him, so he immediately shouted, "Thorny silk white vine, burn your vitality and form a vine net here." Hearing Zhang Zihao's command, the vines around Zhao Zihao suddenly grew crazily with Zhang Zihao as the core. The vines bound each other. They formed a vine pile about 20 meters tall. Zhang Zihao was a defense-type spirit chi professional. Using the thorny silk white vine to cast the vine entanglement was Zhang Zihao's strongest defensive ability. Zhang Zihao was sure that everyone didn't have much spirit chi left. Without 5 minutes, they wouldn't be able to break through this 4-meter-thick vine. He summoned himself from these vines. It could be said that he had used this move. Zhang Zihao was 100% sure that he could get a spot in the sequence of 100. When the others saw this, they quickly filled the remaining 3 spots beside Gao Feng. No one thought of attacking Gao Feng. Previously, when the skills were thrown at Zhao Zihao, Feng Tsong, Du Su, and the others, Gao Feng was in the middle of these people. When these people were dodging, it could be said that Gao Feng was the one who was attacked the most. The air current around Gao Feng blocked all the elemental skills and blasted them back, injuring many examinees. Some unlucky candidates were directly killed by the skills that were bounced back. Therefore, in the face of such a powerful Gao Feng, no one was willing to look for trouble. When the candidates in the core area were fighting, the examinees in the outer circle were waiting for the people in the middle to fight. He would then step forward and reap the benefits of the fisherman. However, a sudden change occurred. These examinees didn't even have time to react. Then they were devoured by the beast tide. For some reason, the beast tide suddenly became several times more ferocious than before. It was as if there was something behind those exotic beasts that was pushing them forward. He looked at the exotic beast that was about to crash into him. One of the female examinees who was covered in mud hugged her broken arm. He said to his heavily injured main Fae, "Iron Baboon, throw me into the air shield next to Gao Feng in the central area." The Iron Baboon had just thrown the woman out when it was devoured by the beast tide. The woman made a beautiful parabola and smashed into the air shield beside Gao Feng. It directly collided with the air shield. At this moment, the woman felt as if her internal organs were on fire. In the Star Web duel, a function of 100% pain was introduced. This time, in the sequence of 100 assessment, the pain function was also used. Therefore, even if she suffered a small injury in the Star Web space, the feeling of being injured was exactly the same as in the outside world. After the woman collided with the air shield, she was thrown out by the air shield. Just as the woman was about to smash into the beast tide, the woman was suddenly teleported out of the assessment space. At this moment, the examinees standing in the Radiance Sacred Hall opened their eyes. They realized that they had already returned to the real world. They knew that the Radiance 100 sequence assessment was completely over. At this moment there was a sudden cheer from the crowd. The person who let out this cheer was the woman who was about to smash into the beast tide. I didn't die, but the assessment was over? This meant that I had been selected as a member of the sequence of 100. After the examinees were eliminated, they still had to observe the assessment. Therefore, the examinees were very clear about everyone's performance. The examinees subconsciously looked around. They wanted to see if there were any experts around them who had performed extremely well in the assessment. Lin Yuan and Gao Feng stood together, and they were quickly discovered by the people around them. When they saw the mask on Lin Yuan's face, these examinees were slightly stunned. It turned out that the fake fan that they thought was Lin Yuan was actually Lin Yuan himself. These examinees immediately felt that Lin Yuan was actually Lin Yuan. However, they immediately became excited. Their eyes kept looking at Lin Yuan and Gao Feng. Gao Feng was only famous because of this assessment. However, Lin Yuan's fame wasn't just that. Long before he participated in the sequence of 100, Lin Yuan had already shown signs of being the most popular person among the younger generation on Star Web. He could almost be considered the leader of the younger generation. This was the first time Lin Yuan had appeared in reality. If this wasn't the Radiance Sacred Hall, envoys from the two major federations were observing the ceremony, and the Supremes were watching from above. Many people would probably want to ask Lin Yuan for his autograph. Li Nai, Zhang Zihao, and the other 11 members of the sequence of 100 stood together. At this moment, only Li Nai and Zhang Zihao had smiles on their faces. This was because only Li Nai and Zhang Zihao could return to the sequence of 100. They had protected the glory of being a member of the sequence of 100. The other members of the sequence of 100 felt a little upset. However, there was nothing to be upset about in such an assessment. At this moment, Lu Wenqing's voice sounded from the golden stone pillar. This assessment of the sequence of 100 is officially over. Next, the last 10 people of the assessment will mount the jade red cranes and ascend the silver stone pillar. Lu Wenqing's words caused the examinees to hold their breaths involuntarily. 10 giant feathered cranes with cinnabar on their heads, golden feathers on their bodies, jade patterns on their backs, and a jade rui in their mouths. They flapped their wings and flew toward the square formation where the candidates were. Then they flew separately to a position in the square formation. They accurately landed in front of the last 10 candidates. They looked at the jade red cranes that were crawling in front of them. Lin Yuan and Gao Feng raised their feet and used the crane's wings to ascend onto the back of the jade red cranes. After Lin Yuan and Gao Feng stabilized themselves, the jade red cranes flapped their wings and flew away. They flew toward the silver stone pillar. According to their performance in the assessment space, the jade red cranes automatically stopped beside the silver stone pillar where they should stop. Lin Yuan looked at the 9 empty golden stone pillars on his left side. He stood on the stone pillar that represented the Radiance 100 sequence's 91st position. Lin Yuan stood on the silver stone pillar and looked through the silver mask. He looked in the direction of the Freedom Federation's envoys and thought to himself, the appetizer was over and the real collision was about to begin. Chapter 1687. Beside Lin Yuan was Gao Feng. Gao Feng landed on the 92nd stone pillar of the Radiance 100 sequence. It was followed by Li Nao and Zhang Zihao. The last one was the 100th member of the Radiance 100 sequence. It was the air shield that had been thrown by the iron-skinned baboon toward Gao Feng. She was bounced back by the air shield and fell toward the girl in the insect tide. It was the time when she bounced back and forth in the air that allowed her to enter the 100th rank of the Radiance 100 sequence. The new 100 sequence members climbed up the stone pillars. The silver stone pillars were finally filled with the younger generation prodigies of the Radiance 100 sequence. Those candidates who had failed due to various reasons. Looking at the 100 figures on the golden stone pillars, they might be depressed. But they couldn't help but applaud sincerely. Among them, Li Nao and Zhang Zihao looked at each other. As a member who had participated in 200 sequence selections, the last round of the arena battles would determine the final 10 people. It was rare to get the sincere recognition of the same batch of candidates. This was because Spirit Chi professionals' talents restrained each other. If they could find a suitable target, there were too many precedents of the weak defeating the strong. Many people felt that if they could meet an opponent that restrained them, they would have the chance to advance all the way to the 100 sequence, to become a 100 sequence member. And now, in this kind of assessment in such a large environment, everyone did their best. In these 3 days, everyone no longer checked and balanced each other but cooperated. After spending 3 days together, the examinees were truly impressed by the 10 members of the 100 sequence that had been selected. Even Yu Tiantian, who had relied on luck to become the 100th 100 sequence member. She also stood at the very end. Yu Tiantian's combat ability was slightly weaker than the other candidates. But wasn't it Yu Tiantian's plan to let the iron-skinned baboon throw her into the sky? At this moment the Star Web was filled with cheers. The Star Web reporters who had been watching the entire assessment. While he was watching, he had already finished writing his script. As soon as the assessment ended, he filled in the order of the 100 sequence members and sent the manuscript out. These posts from the Star Web reporters quickly occupied all the major forums in Chieba. However, at this moment of cheering, not many people went to read this first-hand information. This was because everyone who was able to log on to the Star Web was someone who had personally experienced the 100 sequence assessment. With his eyes, he saw through the entire process of the test. There was really no need to understand the situation of the test through the Star Web reporter's post. Originally, Lu Shuang and Poison Beauty were still lamenting about the live broadcast. Because of Black, he did not show his face in the Yellow Sand Castle. As a result, the number of viewers in his live streaming room was not as many as he had imagined. In the meantime, Lu Shuang and Poison Beauty switched to Li Nao's and Gao Feng's perspectives. However, after the assessment ended, the popularity of Li Nao and Poison Beauty's live streaming room instantly exploded. The viewers who were watching Li Nao and Poison Beauty's live streaming were waiting to see the Black angle from the beginning. After Black became the 91st of the 100 sequence, he returned to the live stream that he had been waiting for. A heated discussion ensued. Hui Bulich, I said before that Black will definitely be selected into the Radiance 100 sequence. I was right to come here and poke my eyes. Deranged? Black can become a member of the 100 sequence. Is there a need for you to say that? Anyone with a discerning eye could tell. Black awesome. Not only did he become a member of the 100 sequence, but he also brought 2 people with him. Emosia, please. Gao Feng doesn't need to be a black belt at all. If Gao Feng didn't wait for Black at the beginning and rushed to the central area, he wouldn't have been the first to encounter the beast tide. If Li Nao had a bit of selfishness, he wouldn't have been in such a difficult situation. Tai Chi Gujing. No matter what, Black and Gao Feng are stronger than the rest. They are not on the same level as Li Nao and Zhang Zihao, who are ranked 93rd and 94th. Shen Weiyue 1, there is no need to trample on them. Everyone is a top genius of the Radiance 100's younger generation. I'm very curious now. What will Black's title be? The titles of the Radiance 100 sequence members were not decided by themselves at the beginning. It was the Star Web's netizens who came up with the titles on the Radiance Sacred Halls forum. Hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of titles were displayed in the Radiance Sacred Halls forum for every 100 sequence member. After 48 hours, the title with the most votes would be obtained. This was the initial title of the 100 sequence members. Of course, if the 100 sequence members were not satisfied, they could make changes. Just like Zhao Xiaochun back then, because she was in the 100 sequence selection, she had been eating non-stop. One moment she was eating pig trotters, the next moment she was eating drumsticks. After a match she could eat 3 pig trotters. She could eat 5 drumsticks. Therefore she was voted to obtain the title of gluttony. As a result, when Zhao Xiaochun found out about her title, the next day she applied to the Radiance Sacred Halls officials. She changed gluttony to anorexia. Although the Star Web's official title had changed, when Zhao Xiaochun was mentioned. In the memories of ordinary people, Zhao Xiaochun's title was still gluttony, not anorexia. Chu Xi was in the Return from Faraway Manor, sitting with the mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer. Through the Star Web she was watching Lin Yuan, who was standing on the silver stone pillar. Chu Xi felt that these 10 months were like a dream. 10 months ago Lin Yuan was still a thin and weak youth who could barely maintain a small face store. Back then Lin Yuan had done his best to maintain a living. He had worked hard to save up for his tuition fees. He had thought of the very least. He had to provide for his Spirit Chi Professional University. Chu Si had helped others write workbooks in school. She had tried her best to think of how to earn more money to buy more medicine for Lin Yuan. However, ever since Lin Yuan had come to visit her at school, after he had given her a bronze sharp iron horn bull, everything had changed. Chu Si did not know how Lin Yuan had become a creation master and how he had obtained so many precious resources for her. She did not know how Lin Yuan, who did not even have the talent to become a Spirit Chi professional, had made it into the 100 sequence. However, Chu Si knew that along the way, her brother Lin Yuan must have suffered a lot. Looking at Lin Yuan, Chu Si's eyes could not help but turn red. Her heart was filled with pride and pride. Apart from Chu Si, no one in this world knew how difficult it had been for Lin Yuan in the past. Lin Yuan had become a 100 sequence member. The mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer might be happy for Lin Yuan. However, they did not feel anything else. In the eyes of the mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer, Lin Yuan should be standing in this position. If not for the fact that he was a new 100 sequence member, he would not be ranked before 90th. Lin Yuan could compete with Lu Jie for the first position. Lu Jie turned to look at where Lin Yuan was. In a sense, Lu Jie was now. He was standing in the same row as Lin Yuan. End of this chapter. Chapter 1688. Next, he might even fight alongside Lin Yuan. Thinking of this, Lu Jie's serious face revealed a trace of throbbing emotions. This palpitation was the pleasant surprise of being able to fight alongside Lin Yuan. Secondly, Lu Jie had just received feedback from the Insect Queen. The Blade Queen Bee was showing signs of metamorphosis. The Blade Queen Bee had already comprehended the willpower rune when it had just fused with the source-type item Cocoon Demon Embryo. Between the Insect Queen and the Blade Queen Bee, the Insect Queen was only controlled by the mental poison. Therefore, the Blade Queen Bee's level was not suppressed. In other words, as long as the Insect Queen allowed the Blade Queen Bee to evolve. As an insect-type carcinoma Fae, the Blade Queen Bee would attract a special world cleansing. It would then become a myth-breed insect-type carcinoma Fae. Under the effect of the Cocoon Demon Embryo, she became a demon. Letting the Blade Queen Bee evolve on the spot was indeed risky. However, this method would also increase their chances of winning. A Diamond X/Legend Blade Queen Bee compared to a Diamond X/Fantasy V Blade Queen Bee. The difference was like heaven and earth. A Diamond X/Fantasy V Blade Queen Bee was compared to a Suzerain/Myth I Blade Queen Bee. There will be an even bigger gap. In the information that Hui Yao had collected, there was no precedent of an insect-type carcinoma Fae transforming into a demon spirit. However, Lu Jie had heard Lin Yuan mention it before. When a carcinoma Fae transformed into a demonic spirit, the number of wings wouldn't be small. Lin Yuan had said that because he had fused the plant-type carcinoma Fae, the sea burial lotus flower, with the source-type fairy's heart. It allowed the sea burial lotus flower to transform into a demon. After the sea burial lotus flower transformed into a demon, it had 3 pairs of wings and was now a 6-winged demon. The sea burial lotus flower was able to achieve such a transformation. Firstly, it was related to the pure spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone. Secondly, it was related to the coral jades with insect patterns. It was the coral jade that had allowed the sea burial lotus flower's bloodline to evolve. The Blade Queen Bee did not have pure spirit chi, nor did it have anything that could help its bloodline evolve. However, after the transformation, it would probably reach the level of a 4-winged demon. Once the 12 cocoon demon embryos were all used by him, the Insect Queen, who had just become a 6-winged demon, was leading 12 4-winged demons. Following the transformation of the insect-type carcinoma Fae into a demon, his bloodline had been continuously enhanced. Lu Jie felt that as long as he kept working hard, there was a chance to keep up with Lin Yuan's footsteps. At this time, within the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission, Li Yang looked at Lian Xin, who was sitting beside him, and said, "Pity Goddess, our Freedom Federation's envoy will be challenging the Radiance Federation's 10 new 100 sequence members. At the same time, pull down a few disciples of His Holiness Hui Yao." "I do not know." Before Li Yang could finish speaking, he was interrupted by the Pity God. "You are in charge of these things, so you don't need to tell me. As long as nothing goes wrong with Qian Yu, I don't care about anything else." It could be said that the goddess of pity would come here. It was all because of Qian Yu. When Goddess Lian received news about Qian Yu, she was afraid that Qian Yu would be in danger. Otherwise, with Goddess Lian's troublesome personality, she would not have made this trip. Wasn't swimming in the cold pool water mirror behind the Freedom Temple more interesting than coming to the Radiance 100 sequence to watch the Radiance 100 sequence test? Qian Yu was seen by the Pity Goddess as her future. She would not object to Qian Yu's participation. However, if Qian Yu was in danger, she would not have any scruples. She would definitely make a move and save Qian Yu. She would ascend to the god position and evolve her sacred source life form to 11 star. As long as she could remove the curse, she would be qualified to peak at a higher path. Li Yang was a little displeased when he was interrupted by the pity goddess. But he didn't say anything unnecessary. It was as though Li Yang was used to the pity goddess interrupting him. Now that the pity goddess did not care, Li Yang decided to act according to his original plan. Li Yang said to Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian, "The three of you get ready first." Li Yang then looked at Qian Yu and said, "I hope you can follow the original plan and pull down Lu Yifan. Then, apart from Gao Feng, pull down one or two more disciples of His Holiness Hui Yao. You decide for yourself what you should do. If you can pull down Lu Yifan apart from Gao Feng, pull down two more disciples of His Holiness Hui Yao. After this, I can give you a 7-star artifact that you can use in my name. If you don't pull down Lu Yifan apart from Gao Feng, you can pull down 3 of His Holiness Hui Yao's disciples. I can also give you that 7-star artifact." As Li Yang spoke, he looked at Black, who was standing at Radiance 100 sequence number 91. Li Yang did not know who Black was. However, in Li Yang's opinion, Black's strength had reached the standard of His Holiness Hui Yao's disciples. Qian Yu heard this and was moved. Previously, Qian Yu had been in a life-and-death situation several times. Every time, Her Holiness Goddess Pity, who cared for him, would save him. In the Freedom Federation, Qian Yu was a freedom envoy. He had learned to ensure his own interests before doing anything. The best way to ensure his own interests was to be able to participate in this competition. Obtain Li Yang's promise of a 7-star artifact. Qian Yu actually did not want to pull down Lu Yifan. This was because Qian Yu had fought with Lu Yifan before. He knew Lu Yifan's strength, especially Lu Yifan's troublesome Desolation bloodline Fei. Therefore, compared to pulling down Lu Yifan, Qian Yu was more willing to pull down 3 more of His Holiness Hui Yao's disciples. However, Qian Yu was clear in his heart. If he went up, he would be the Freedom Federation's freedom envoy. His target would be Lu Yifan, who was also a Radiance envoy. If he proposed to challenge Lu Yifan, the Radiance faction could only agree because of their reputation. However, he wanted to challenge His Holiness Hui Yao's younger generation disciples. He was 3 to 4 years older than His Holiness Hui Yao. Furthermore, his Fei had been promoted to myth breed. If the Radiance faction agreed, it would be no different from sending His Holiness Hui Yao's disciples to their deaths. As a genius of the younger generation, 3 years was a huge gap. His Holiness Li Yang might have given him 2 choices, but only the first one could be chosen. Before making his choice, Qian Yu looked at Her Holiness Goddess Pity, who cared for him, and asked, "Teacher, I would like to ask you to help me see Black's age. How old is he exactly?" Hearing this, Her Holiness Goddess said directly, "Black's age cannot be more than 19. Hearing Her Holiness Goddess's words, the worry in Qian Yu's heart instantly disappeared. He took a step forward and said in a clear voice, "The younger generation of the Radiance Hui Yao clan is indeed full of talents. While the Freedom Federation's envoy is here to observe the ceremony, we would like to have a friendly match with the newly selected 100 sequence members of the Radiance Hui Yao clan." End of this chapter. Chapter 1689. Qian Yu had always felt that he couldn't see through the darkness. In other words, although Black had used a shocking method in the assessment, he was still able to defeat Black. However, the information that was revealed was too little. If Black's true age was stuck at the upper age limit of the Radiance 100 sequence like 28 or 29, in that case, Qian Yu would have to consider it carefully. 28 or 29 years old, which was even older than him. If Hui Yao had really arranged it, it was highly likely that he had rashly pulled down Lu Yifan and the 2 disciples of His Holiness. Lu Yifan, the 2 disciples of His Holiness, Gao Feng and Black worked together. Against himself, Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian. It wouldn't be good if his side flipped over. Qian Yu knew that Her Holiness the Goddess of Pity was looking after him. He had already grasped his life providence. Experts who had grasped fate could tell the age of other life forms at a glance. That was the reason why Qian Yu had made such a decision before the competition. He wanted Goddess Lian to help him look at Black's age. After learning that Black was not even 19 years old, Qian Yu no longer took Black seriously. As a 19-year-old spirit chi professional, no matter how talented he was still a genius. How strong could he be? Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian could become His Majesty's caretakers. Among the members of the Independent 100 sequence, which one of them was not a genius? Qian Yu was hesitant at first. At this moment, Qian Yu was ready to drag Lu Yifan down without any scruples. And two of His Holiness disciples. His side's advantage lay in Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian's sacred source lifeforms. Sacred source lifeforms needed to be able to link with each other. It was not an easy task. This was the first time in the Freedom Federation's history that three sacred source lifeforms were able to interact with one another. After all, the number of sacred source lifeforms was too small. Unlike source-type items, most king-stage powerhouses could easily obtain them with their own strength. The Radiance Federation had unique desolate bloodline phase. In the Freedom Federation, every single person favored by His Holiness had a contract with a demon from the Devil's Church. The uniqueness of a desolate bloodline Fae was that it could control a certain power of nature. It was similar to the spirit of heavenly favor. However, in terms of growth, it did not rely on the heavens and earth like the chosen spirits. Instead, it had to be cultivated artificially. They were creatures that were extremely compatible with nature. As for the Freedom Federation, the demons that originated from the Devil's Church possessed ominous powers. He focused on strengthening his physical body and soul. Ghosts that had strengthened their bodies had powerful combat techniques, as well as all kinds of strange abilities. It was a monster that focused on the soul. It was good at seducing people, attacking their minds and causing them to fall. It was impossible to guard against. The people from the other federations talked about the Radiance Federation's desolate bloodline phase and the Freedom Federation's monsters. Perhaps he was more afraid of the Freedom Federation's ghosts and monsters. The aura released by a desolate bloodline Fae would affect lifeforms of the same attribute or similar laws. It had an extremely strong suppressive force. This kind of suppression was still within the range of human understanding. However, the monster's ferocious appearance and ominous aura emanating from its body made Lin Fan feel uneasy. It gave people goosebumps. Upon hearing Qian Yu's words, the examinees present, the members of the 100 sequence on the Silverstone pillars, and the viewers on Star Web were all stunned. It instantly boiled over. The examinees at the venue and the Star Web audience. His thoughts were not much different. He was looking forward to the friendly match proposed by Freedom Envoy Qian Yu, who was leading the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission. He wanted to see which side was stronger, the Radiance Federation's geniuses or the Freedom Federation's geniuses. It could be said that in the hearts of these examinees and the Star Web audience, they all had a sense of honor and mission. There was an intense discussion on Star Web. Deep Mountain Oldly, I originally wanted to go to the Radiance Sacred Hall's newly established Black's personal page and enter the title that I thought of. I was just about to leave the live streaming room, but I didn't expect to see the friendly match proposed by the Freedom Federation. Clarity, Go Radiance Federation. Kill them. Nicholas Zhangqi, according to the rules of the other federations who came to the Radiance Federation to watch the ceremony in the past few years, those who participated in the friendly match were all new members of the 100 sequence. The people sent by the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission will definitely be stronger. This time, Black should be able to reveal more phase. Mountain River Spirit, I'm looking forward to the match later. Since it's a friendly match, if it's based on friendship, both sides shouldn't use any killer moves, right? Amber Button, impossible. The bet between the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation is full of the smell of gunpowder. I bet $5 Radiance that this match might be under the guise of a friendly match, but the real situation is definitely not that simple. The Star Web's netizens and examinees were looking forward to the match. It was because these people didn't think very far. Those veteran factions and the members of the top factions who were paying attention to the current situation all knew. After the 100 sequence ended, the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission had revealed its claws. They were ready to make a move on the Radiance Federation. This match was of great importance. These people's eyes were focused on Black, Gao Feng, Li Nao, Zhang Zihao and the others. Their fists were clenched tightly. At such a time, the two major federations had to wrestle with the strength of the younger generation. Under normal circumstances, winning or losing wasn't that important. After all, the duel wasn't between the current Radiance envoys or Freedom envoys. However, the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission had proposed the match in the Radiance Federation's royal capital. It was also carried out when the Radiance 100 selection had just ended and everyone was watching. If the Radiance Federation lost this match, to the entire Radiance Federation, it would have a huge impact. Apart from Lu Jie, Xiaqing and Gao Feng, the 100 sequence members who were standing on the Silverstone pillar, the others furrowed their brows. Lu Jie, Xiaqing, Lin Yuan, and Gao Feng already knew that this conflict was bound to happen. Long Tao was from the Coiled Dragon Valley, a top faction. Among the 100 sequence, half of them were members of the top factions and veteran factions. These people had previously guessed that the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission would make a move after the 100 sequence selection ended. But guesses were just guesses. When the real situation happened, these people couldn't help but feel their hearts in their throats. As members of the 100 sequence, everyone held onto the Radiance Federation's consciousness in their hearts. Therefore, these people knew that the friendly match proposed by the Freedom Federation could only be won and not lost. Even if they had to risk their lives, they had to protect the Radiance Federation's glory. Chen Yu's eyes were looking straight at the 13 supremacies who were standing on the golden stone pillar. He seemed to be waiting for the 13 supremacies to give him a response. However, the 13 supremacies didn't have the intention to bother with Chen Yu. At that moment, Lu Yifan, who was standing on the 7-colored stone pillar, spoke in a clear voice. The Radiance Federation will accept the Freedom Federation's challenge. The rules of the challenge have always been set by the party that issued the challenge. How do you want to compete? Your Freedom Federation can just say it. Chapter 1690. Lu Yifan was originally in seclusion in the desolate mystic realm. He was preparing to participate in the 10,000 States Convention for the last time in 2 years. The 10,000 States Convention was originally attended by 2 Federation envoys. The previous Federation envoys were the main team members, and the younger generation envoys were the substitutes. During the previous 10,000 States Convention, Lu Yifan had been a substitute. In the Star Web test space, the Radiance 100 sequence test lasted for 3 days. In the eyes of many spectators, this test was already very long. To every examinee's mentality, this was a huge test. That was because these people did not know what the 10,000 States Convention was like. Every 10 years, the 10,000 States Convention would be held on an uninhabited continent. The size of this continent was definitely incomparable to the Radiance continent. However, compared to the Agon continent next to the Radiance continent, it was basically 1/5 the size of the Divinewood Federation. At that time, each federation would have 30 contestants, who would represent their federation on this continent to compete. There were many ways to compete. There were simple 1-on-1 arena battles, 2-on-2 team battles, and 5-on-5 team battles. In the arena battles, each person could only go on stage once. There were many things to pay attention to. They had to pay attention to the strategy between the entire team. After the complicated arena, 1-on-1, and team battles, every Federation member would be teleported to any location on the continent. At that time, the Federation members would develop on this continent and attack each other. The main competition was which Federation occupied more land on this continent. This assessment would last for a full 6 months. Previously, as a substitute, Lu Yifan had seen how harsh the 10,000 States Convention test was. To put it bluntly, the arena battles were a competition to reduce the number of people. In the previous 10,000 States Convention, during the arena battles, one of the main team members, a Radiance envoy, was seriously injured. 3 members of the Radiance Knights were dead. No one from the substitute team was injured. This was because the main team of Radiance did not allow substitutes to go on stage. It was just to let the substitutes see the world. After the 10,000 States Convention, the previous Radiance envoy retired with honor. All of them entered the land of Radiance for seclusion. After another 2 years, Lu Yifan saw his destiny. Therefore, Lu Yifan was actually quite happy that the Freedom Federation could be this demon. It would let the younger generation of Radiance feel the malice from other federations. Lu Yifan stared at Black and Gao Feng. Since Gao Feng was accepted as a disciple of Cicada Cry, he definitely had more tricks up his sleeves. Therefore, in Lu Yifan's eyes, Gao Feng, a pure support, was a little more special. He could not become a Radiant Glory envoy. There would always be a position in the Radiant Light Knights. Lu Yifan did not know about Black's situation. However, Lu Yifan was full of expectations for Black. After all, Black had broken the record set by the guy with the poker face. This was enough to prove Black's talent. When Chen Yu heard what Lu Yifan said, his face revealed an unbridled smile. Since that's the case, let me, the challenger, make the request. Why don't you come down and play with me? We'll lead our teams and have a competition together. The friendly match that Chen Yu mentioned was actually just a superficial project. If the friendship between the 2 great federations was truly deep, everyone was already drinking and chatting merrily. Why was there a need for a competition in the name of friendship? In the end, Lu Yifan did not give him a chance to save face. He made the topic clear. If it was before, when only Li Su was around. In the Radiance Federation's territory, even as the 3rd-ranked Freedom Envoy, Qian Yu would never dare to say such a thing. But now the situation was different from before. The arrival of Goddess Lian filled Qian Yu's heart with confidence. Qian Yu's words made the expressions of the 100 sequence members on the silver stone pillar change. The examinees and the audience watching the live broadcast on Star Web. They all fell into silence. Star Web was the only pastime of the Radiance Federation's citizens in the Spirit Chi Awakening era. It was even closely related to life itself. These people ran their own personal homepages on Star Web. They watched the live broadcast and hit the Star Web tower. Usually when there was a lively scene they would come to watch the fun. However, after Qian Yu said those words, the crowd was stunned. Those who originally planned to watch the friendly match and watch the fun all knew. This was no longer a lively scene. The Radiance 100 sequence members were the shining stars of the Radiance Federation. It could be said that 80% of the Star Web netizens had been fans of the previous 100 sequence members. In the Radiance Federation, Radiance envoys had the same status as Her Majesty. They were the backbone of Radiance. No matter what Qian Yu's identity was, even if Qian Yu was a freedom envoy. At this moment he wanted to drag Lu Yifan off the stage, and it immediately ignited the anger of the Radiance Federation's people. Lucky little panda. What's going on this time? I gave you face but you don't want it. You actually want to drag Lord Lu Yifan down. Kill them. Scar of Hidden Star. I'm so angry. During the match later, give it your all. Beat all the Freedom Federation's people until they are lying on the ground. Guorin, Black, I was such a fan of you before and I don't have any other requests from you. No matter what, you have to use all your strength this time and beat the Freedom Federation's people down. Otherwise I will turn from a male mother's fan to a hater. Sour and sweet self-knowledge. The Freedom Federation's envoy can't be up to something, right? Our 2-year agreement with the Freedom Federation is just around the corner. Why do I keep feeling that the Freedom Federation might be plotting something? The examinees who had been eliminated all turned their gazes towards the direction of the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission. Qian Yu, who had participated in the 10,000 Nations Conference, could ignore the gazes of tens of thousands of geniuses. However, Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian couldn't help but feel that the atmosphere was a little tense. Qian Yu wanted to drag Lu Yifan down, which was out of the expectations of the Radiance 13 Highnesses. However, at this time no one would say anything. This was because as the Radiance Federation's third-ranked envoy, Lu Yifan was qualified to make a decision. Whether he should participate or not. How this match should be carried out. Upon hearing that, Lu Yifan said in a clear voice, I can participate. Under normal circumstances, the challenge match is between the last 10 sequence members and the other side's last 10 sequence members. Seeing that Lu Yifan had agreed. Suddenly, Qian Yu had a different idea in his mind. Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian were indeed participating in this year's Independent 100 Sequence Assessment. However, Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian went on a killing spree. They directly worked together to eliminate half of the examinees. As a result, the Independent 100 Sequence examiners had no choice but to ask Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian to withdraw from the assessment midway. The 3 of them were ranked 88th, 89th, and 90th. The Independent 100 Sequence members who were originally ranked 88th, 89th, and 90th were allowed to participate in the assessment. Although it was a little against the rules, Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian were Independent 100 Sequence members after all. If he didn't drag down the other Highness's disciples, he would have led Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian to kill Lu Yifan. What should the Radiance Federation do? Chapter 1691. When Spirit Chi professionals dueled, it didn't matter if they had good or bad intentions. There was always the possibility of an accident. If something happened to one of them, it might not necessarily be because the opponent's attack was too strong. It was also very likely that one side did not block it. If he could really kill Lu Yifan in such a public place, he would definitely be able to do so. The Radiance Federation was not in a position to say anything. Otherwise, in the Radiance Federation's territory, the Radiance Federation would intervene in the friendly match between the two states. He would definitely become the laughingstock of the origin world and lose all of his prestige. By then, Radiance would have 3 Class 5 Creation Masters. Even if the Radiance Federation had one more Class 5 Creation Master, when the other federations mentioned the Radiance Federation, they wouldn't dare to mention it. He wouldn't be as respectful as before. Lu Yifan, the third-ranked Radiance envoy, would attend the Radiance 100 Sequence test. It could be said that this was completely out of Qian Yu's expectations. Previously, Qian Yu was only thinking about how to drag Her Majesty's disciple into the water. However, he had never thought that he would be able to pull down the Radiance envoys. Although Qian Yu accepted Li Yang's conditions, he was still unable to accept them. But at the end of the day he had to take risks. He wouldn't be as confident as he was against Lu Yifan. If he could win this friendly match, he would directly crush Lu Yifan to death. Even though he was unable to obtain the 7-star treasure tool promised by Li Yang. But when they returned to the Freedom Federation, as the leader of the diplomatic mission, he would definitely be rewarded handsomely. Thinking of this, Qian Yu looked at Lu Yifan with greed in his eyes. It was as if Lu Yifan himself was a treasure trove. Qian Yu said after staring at Lu Yifan for a while. Then let's begin immediately. Hearing Qian Yu's words, their expressions changed in unison. These three people were Li Yang, Lin Yuan, and Yin Lin. Li Yang looked at Qian Yu gloomily. It could be said that Qian Yu changing his mind in private was equivalent to disrupting Li Yang's original plan. Or rather, it affected the cooperation between Li Yang and Renaissance Second Page. The cooperation with Revival Second Page was very important to Li Yang. If it was before, Qian Yu would have changed his decision at the last minute. Li Yang would definitely stop him. But now the pity goddess had arrived. As the caretaker of the goddess of compassion, Qian Yu still had to give the goddess of compassion face. After confirming that he could not change his decision, Li Yang did not even look at Second Page Revival, who was at the back of the team. The cooperation between him and the Second Page of Revival had their own purposes. There was no interaction between them to know what the other party's goal was. It could be said that both sides were using each other, and there was no real friendship between them. Therefore, after weighing his own interests, Li Yang decisively abandoned the Second Page of Revival. Without seeing Li Yang, who was whipping Sixth Page, he felt uncertain. Up until now, Li Yang hadn't seen any traces of the 4 horsemen mentioned on the Second Page of the Revival. Li Yang decided to unilaterally stop the cooperation with Renaissance Second Page. He snorted in his heart. Second Page of Revival, you're useless. Li Yang's expression was abnormally stern as he clenched his fists tightly. After witnessing several sacred source lifeforms, Li Yang knew how terrifying their abilities were. A sacred source lifeform's abilities were beyond the phase abilities and exclusive skills. The combination of Fey abilities and exclusive skills could burst out with multiple times the power. Moreover, the Freedom Federation envoys had 3 sacred source lifeforms that could complement each other. The effect would definitely be multiplied. In fact, when the 3 sacred source lifeforms' abilities were unleashed, Luo Yunyang's eyes widened. The sacred source lifeform itself could restrict the opponent from a higher dimension and kill them. Lin Yuan's sacred source lifeform was very special. The sacred sword-wielding queen was formed by the fusion of 2 sacred source lifeforms. Without the fusion, Lin Yuan could use the sacred punishment sword's abilities to produce an attack that far exceeded his current grade. Lin Yuan had gotten the news from Yin Lin. After receiving the news, Lin Yuan had been thinking about how to deal with it. Fortunately, Gao Feng's sacred source lifeform had brought Lin Yuan good news. Lin Yuan might be strong, but he did not dare to be arrogant. He believed that he could be compared to the current Freedom Envoy. No matter how strong a fantasy breed Fey was, there was still a huge difference between it and a myth breed Fey. The Freedom Envoy was the Freedom Federation's top prodigy. Even the Freedom Federation could not produce such pure spirit chi and elemental energy. However, the nurturing of Feys could at least reach Zhong Zhe Gulang's standard. It was not that Lin Yuan did not dare to deal with it. Apart from himself and Gao Feng, Li Nao, Zhang Zihao, and the others had performed amazingly in the test. They did not even have a diamond/fantasy breed Fey. When it came to a real battle, they would only be cannon fodder. Lin Yuan and Chen Yu could not guarantee that they could protect Gao Feng. Lin Yuan had not told the Moon Empress about Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian's situation. He had only told her about the Freedom Federation's conspiracy. Lin Yuan made up his mind. He had to think of a way to change the situation. Yin Lin's brows were furrowed even tighter than Lin Yuan's. Yin Lin had been thinking of a plan. That way, more of Her Majesty's disciples could come and help Lin Yuan. However, Chen Yu had blocked off this path. With Yin Lin's experience, she naturally knew how terrifying it was when the 3 sacred source lifeforms' abilities were linked. Sensing that the situation was not in Lin Yuan's favor, Yin Lin stood up. Lin Yuan said, "The friendly match is quite interesting. I'm even thinking of participating in it. However, since it is a friendly match, fairness is the most important. From what I know, Chen Yu, the 9 people you brought are not from sequence 91 to 100 of the Independent 100. They are from 88 to 97. Among them, 3 of them are the lucky ones of your Freedom Federation who have received the favor of His Majesty. From what I know, there is only one Her Majesty's disciple from 91 to 100 of the Radiance 100 sequence. That is Gao Feng, who is ranked 92. An unfair duel can't be considered a friendly match. Yin Lin's words could be said to have stripped away Chen Yu's conspiracy and laid it bare on the table. This caused Chen Yu's expression to change. Chen Yu said this because he was not afraid. The Radiance Federation did not accept his proposal. Even if the Radiance Federation knew that he did not bring sequence 91 to 100 of the Independent 100, they were still newcomers. If the Radiance Federation wanted to maintain its magnanimity, it would not fuss over such a small matter. The news that Yanling Kai Hua and Yu Changjian were favored by the Freedom Federation. This was the chip that the Freedom Federation had thrown out at the sea to rope in the Azure Federation. It was confidential. The Radiance Federation's Majesty did not know. Now that Yin Lin had thrown it out, there was a third party involved. The Radiance Federation did not need to care about the so-called magnanimity. Instead, it was the Freedom Federation who was playing tricks. Chapter 1692. Chen Yu stared intently at Yin Lin. When he had personally approached her, he had been rejected. Could it be that the Azure Federation's envoys had intended to stand on the Radiance Federation's side from the start? However, was this folk prescription Yin Lin's own attitude, or the Azure Federation's? Since the identities of Yin Lin, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian had been thrown out on the table, Chen Yu could only give up the idea of bringing Yin Lin, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian to kill Lu Yifan. Yin Lin's words were the truth. However, no matter what, Chen Yu could not agree to Yin Lin's words. Our Freedom Federation has many people who are favored by Her Holiness. Being favored by Her Holiness does not mean anything. The people in my team are this year's new members of the Radiance 100 sequence, just like Gao Feng is Her Holiness' disciple. Didn't he also participate in the Radiance 100 sequence selection? While speaking, Chen Yu looked at the team. A youth with short, milky white hair who looked like a Shota thought to himself. Her Holiness Na had nurtured this youth for 20 years. Now, he had the same world calamity phaseless beast as Her Holiness Na. Looking at this Shota with short, milky white hair, Chen Yu was rather fearful. Originally, Chen Yu did not intend to let this Shota with long milky white hair appear. Every time the world calamity phaseless beast reincarnated, it would confuse people's minds. Moreover, this young man had contracted one of the 7 great devils in the Devil's Cathedral. It must be known that not everyone in the Freedom Federation could form a contract with a greater devil. The 3 archdevils who had made a pact with him were now qualified to call themselves gods. Only the Freedom Federation's Holiness and the Freedom Envoys knew of this youth's existence. Even though Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian were Her Holiness disciples, they did not know about this white-haired Shota's situation. With this white-haired Shota around, Chen Yu was full of confidence. Lan Sun finally understood what Yin Lin meant when she said that he had to stand behind her no matter what. Lan Sun knew that Yin Lin would be partial to the Radiance Federation, but he did not expect it to be so obvious. He really did not know what kind of bewitching drug the Moon Empress disciple had fed Yin Lin. However, the fact that Yin Lin had contracted 2 sacred source life forms could not be exposed no matter what. This was the Azure Federation 2 years later. It was one of the trump cards for the Assembly of 10,000 Nations. Lan Sun immediately communicated with Yin Lin through his mental strength. Lord Azure Envoy, if you want to help the Radiance Federation, I can completely stand on your side. However, no matter what, you cannot participate in this dispute. As long as you don't personally take part, I will support any decision you make. Yin Lin's expression froze when she heard Lan Sun's words. Lan Sun was Yin Lin's teacher, even though Lan Sun usually called her Lord Azure Envoy. However, Yin Lin knew that it was because of Lan Sun's concern for her. At the same time, he also knew that Lan Sun did not agree to his participation because of the Azure 100 sequence members behind him. Because there were no special preparations, there were 3 people favored by His Majesty in the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission today. In the last 10 of the Radiance 100 sequence, 2 of His Holiness's disciples were different. Yin Lin muttered to herself. Since he could not personally enter the battlefield and fight alongside Black, at the very least, he had to make the Radiance Federation send 2 more His Holiness disciples. At that moment, the Star Web audience and the candidates standing in the Radiance Sacred Hall, even those with slow reactions, could smell a thick smell of gunpowder. They knew that the current situation was not ordinary. It was like the 3 major federations were wrestling with each other. At the same time, Yin Lin and Chen Yu's words had exposed Gao Feng's identity twice. The candidates and the audience finally knew why Gao Feng was so powerful. It turned out that Gao Feng was His Holiness Cicada Cry's disciple. No wonder. Back then, several platycodon flowers had bloomed in the sky of the Radiance Federation. Streams of lava had descended. It could be said that the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation had formed an unresolvable hatred. The Azure Federation and the Radiance Federation had always been allies. Now Lin had stood up and exposed the Freedom Federation's contradiction. This made many Star Web audience pay attention to Lin, the Azure Envoy. At the same time, he had a good impression of Lin, the Azure Envoy. Lin muttered to herself for a moment and said, "A friendly match must be fair to be interesting. A friendly match must be fair to be interesting. The Radiance Federation only has one His Holiness disciple. How about pulling 2 more His Holiness disciples into the battlefield? Then, just like your Freedom Federation, eliminate the last 3 people in the 100 sequence. It will be fair if both sides have a team of 10. A 3-way battle. I think you don't want to see it, Chenyu. I don't want to be the one swinging in the middle either. So I'll add some fun. I'll take out a unique Lantis Mystic Realm, a sea demon that was born with the water of life. Whichever side wins, apart from the 2 Federation envoys, the most outstanding member of the winning side will get this sea demon." Lin's words made Lan Sun's face reveal a bitter smile. The Azure Federation's Lantis Mystic Realm, the Radiance Federation's Desolate Mystic Realm, and the Freedom Federation's Devil Church. They were all mystic realms of the same level. The things produced inside were extremely precious. The sea demon that Lin promised to be born with the water of life. It was comparable to the middle-ranked demon in the Devil Church. Lan Sun was even more confused. What did Lin Yuan and Lin talk about in the Fey car? As soon as Lin said that, the white-haired boy in the Freedom Federation's team, there was a strange look on his face. It was as if the sea demon that had awakened the water of life was already in his pocket. The Radiance Holiness, who was standing on the golden stone pillar, had a moved look on his face. They didn't expect Lin to take out such a thing for the Radiance Federation. At this moment, the Moon Empress said, "This palace will also take out a true desolate grade desolate bloodline spiritual object. It will also be given to the candidate with the best performance, apart from the 2 Federation envoys." As soon as the Moon Empress' voice fell, the pitiful god's voice sounded. "True desolate bloodline Fey and a sea demon that has awakened the water of life. Interesting. In that case, I will take out a middle-ranked demon that was born in the Devil Church." Speaking of this, the pitiful god paused and then changed the topic. "I can take out a great demon and give it to the winner with the best performance, apart from the 2 Federation envoys. However, I have a request." Speaking of this, the pitiful god looked at Lin Yuan. She said with a curious face, "You are less than 19 years old and already have such strength. I'm very interested in you. I'll give you a chance to reach the sky in 1 step. Be my caretaker. How about it?" Chapter 1693. For some reason, the Goddess of Compassion's gaze always fell on black. The Goddess of Compassion's vision was extremely high, and her mind was never on cultivating the younger generation. Not to mention that Black did not show all of his strength in the battle. For the Goddess of Compassion, who had awakened and grasped the birth matrix, Black showed all of his strength. It was really nothing. Therefore, the Goddess of Compassion's gaze fell on Black had nothing to do with whether Black was outstanding or not. Moreover, the Goddess of Compassion was indeed obsessed with appearances, and she was a very experienced existence among them. In addition to improving her strength, gathering resources and grasping power, the Goddess of Compassion's greatest hobby was to collect beautiful things. The other majesties of the Freedom Federation would choose to cultivate some lovely and rare fays when they obtained them. However, the Goddess of Compassion would not cultivate these lovely fays. Instead, she would make these fays into specimens and display them in her palace. Compared to the beauty of vitality, the Goddess of Compassion preferred the beauty of death. The beauty of death was more worthy of repeated observation. In the early years, the Goddess of Compassion spent resources to cultivate a team of 200 people. Everyone in these teams, after comprehending the willpower rune, was required to contract fairy source-type lifeforms. Once these people contracted fairy source-type lifeforms and advanced them into fantasy breeds, they would be able to enter fantasy breeds. The Goddess of Compassion would directly kill these fairies that had completely revealed their bodies and characteristics. She would seal the fairy bloodline in the fairies' bodies. She would make these dead fairy source-type lifeforms into dolls. Then, she would hang hundreds of dolls made of fairy source-type lifeforms on the rotating wind chimes in front of the palace. Looking from afar, there were hundreds and thousands of fairies dancing in the air. But the real situation was that all the fairies were meticulously made into handicrafts. Those teams cultivated by the goddess of compassion died because of their main phase. Their minds were damaged and they became useless. Without exception, these people were all arranged by the goddess of compassion to go to the swamp world. They were sent to the swamp world to work as coolies. The goddess of compassion's exquisite and beautiful core was killing and cruelty. The goddess of compassion's willful personality made all the majesties weaker than the goddess of compassion in the Freedom Federation quite afraid of her. Just like Li Su standing next to the goddess of compassion. The goddess of compassion had always done things without any taboos. If his opinion was different from the goddess of compassion, even if goddess Lien did not kill him, she would definitely fight him. Back in the demon church, goddess of mercy clearly had the opportunity to contract the second of the 7 greater demons. However, the second one was not as good-looking as the third one. Thus, goddess Lien decisively gave up on the second beast that was stronger and had greater potential, and chose the third beast instead. It could be said that Lien Xin's obsession with good looks had almost reached the point of insanity. Black was now wearing a silver mask on his face. It was impossible to tell from his appearance. Even if his temperament was exceptional and his physique was outstanding. But for someone who was obsessed with good looks, the combination of temperament and bone structure was not as important as one's looks. Lien Xin felt that she shouldn't be looking at a young man. However, when Lien Xin tried to avert her gaze, she found that her gaze would be involuntarily drawn to him. In fact, Lien Xin even felt a sense of intimacy and excitement that came from her bloodline. It was difficult for a pity goddess to be interested in a person or thing. Now he was indeed interested in Black. That was why goddess Lien dared to say this in the Hui Yao's territory. In the Radiance Federation, apart from that old man, no one had the right to call himself a god. At the level of grasping the life providence, the spirit chi professional would activate the life providence. He could already use a power similar to that of a god. He didn't just rely on phase to fight. This was also the main reason why the Lien god's fishtail was able to block the bamboo monarch's golden thread emperor bamboo shadow. Lien Xin knew very well that if she were to fight with that old man, she would definitely die. Even if he couldn't take advantage of the old man, this elder would never be able to protect the Radiance Federation in his hands. An 11-star sacred source life form and a 10-star sacred source life form were on completely different levels. Although only one of his 2 sacred source life forms had reached the 11-star level, it was still an 11-star sacred source life form. However, if he used the 11-star sacred source life form with all his might, he would be able to draw a circle with the distance between the royal capital and Lantern City. All living beings in the circle were destined to die. Apart from this old man, the Radiant Sect's Moon Empress had adopted a heavenly favored spirit from the heaven-blessed mansion. At this time, his strength had already reached above the eternal realm. A favored spirit reaching the eternal realm and an ordinary spirit reaching the eternal realm were 2 completely different concepts. Given the relationship between the Moon Empress and the favored spirit, the Moon Empress would not be able to escape. If she were to make a move, the favored spirit would definitely help Hui Yao. If not for her misgivings, the Lien god wouldn't have needed to rope in Black in front of everyone. Instead, she had directly snatched Black over. Before Lin Yuan could react, the Lien god's words left her mouth. The Moon Empress' brows were already tightly knitted. She clenched her left fist. Song Yu and Mystic Moon, who were standing behind the Moon Empress, subconsciously thought, "This is bad." While the Moon Empress cared for Lin Yuan very much, she also had a desire to protect him that far exceeded that of an ordinary master and disciple. Mystic Moon and Song Yu were afraid that the Moon Empress would directly attack the Lien god. They both knew that the Moon Empress had awakened her birth providence. She had also embarked on that path. Although the Lien god had embarked on that path nearly 10 years earlier than the Moon Empress. However, due to her bloodline, after the Lien god embarked on that path, her strength could no longer advance. Therefore, if they really fought, the Moon Empress should be able to fight evenly with the Lien god. However, if the Moon Empress really could not hold back her temper, it would definitely not be a good thing for Hui Yao. The expressions of the other 12 majesties also changed slightly. The gazes of the 12 majesties were not on the Moon Empress. However, they could feel the change in the Moon Empress aura. At that moment, in the direction of the silver stone pillar, a youth's cold voice echoed. "Please get this clear. I am from the Radiance Federation. Besides, I have a master and I will not become your caretaker." The youth's voice sounded very calmly. However, this voice shocked the entire Radiance Federation as it was being broadcasted live on the Star Web. In fact, as early as the Lien god had publicly roped in Lin Yuan, the Star Web had already exploded. Memory brush and ink? What the hell? The Freedom Federation's majesties are actually publicly roping in Black. Is Black's talent that strong? They are openly snatching geniuses from our Radiance Federation. Little Zhang's tears dry. Didn't you guys hear that Black's age is really less than 19 years old? Why does his age make me think of a person? Damn. If that's the case, isn't Black and Lin Yuan the same age? Wiping tiredness. The Freedom Federation's majesties are really disgusting. Is there no one else in the Freedom Federation? They actually want to openly seduce our Black. Dreaming of you, didn't you guys see just now? The Freedom Envoy leading the Freedom Federation's team is the caretaker of the Freedom Federation's majesties. As long as Black agrees, he will ascend to the heavens in a single bound. Do you think Black can resist such temptation? 7017K. Chapter 1694. Maple Dance, you have to block it even if you can. As Black's diehard fan, if Black agrees, Black and I will be enemies. There was a frenzy of discussion on Star Web. Black might have caused a shocking commotion during the Radiance 100 Sequences test, but he was not as powerful as before. However, how much of his strength had Black, who had been hiding in the Yellow Sand Castle the entire time, revealed? The Freedom Federation's invitation was equivalent to Black not showing his full strength. It affirmed Black's innate talent. After all, it was not the first time the Freedom Federation's envoys had come to the Radiance 100 Sequence test. However, such a situation had never happened before. Before the Star Web's netizens could discuss for long, Black had already given his answer. The sentence, "I'm from the Radiance Federation," indicated Black's attitude. It also caused all the netizens to be excited. The words Radiance Federation seemed to be able to go straight into people's blood. It evoked an endless power. Then, Black said that he had a teacher and straightforwardly rejected the Freedom Federation's invitation. Whether Black's teacher could be compared to the Freedom Federation's majesty. Black's attitude toward the Freedom Federation's majesty was worthy of those passers-by who had no thoughts about Black before to become his fans. Infatuated Dreamstar Ocean. Black, well done. As long as I still have a breath left, I will support you for life. Dawn. I've heard people on Star Web saying that they have different opinions about Black being the leader of the Radiance Federation's younger generation. Strength isn't the only standard to represent the younger generation, but now I feel that Black is indeed qualified to represent the Radiance Federation's younger generation. Little Scholar. Black's "I'm from the Radiance Federation" makes me want to drink 2 bottles of wine for some reason. Shui, aren't you curious about who Black's teacher is? This is the first time I've heard Black say that he has a teacher in public. Black's words aroused the Star Web's netizens' blood. This caused Lien Shin to frown. The pity god thought that she would be angry and have killing intent toward Black. However, she realized that she couldn't have killing intent toward Black. In fact, after being rejected by Black, she wanted to get close to Black even more. The compassionate goddess was shocked when she realized what she was thinking. He didn't know why he felt as if he had been bewitched out of the blue. If he was really charmed, it would be easy and understandable for him to have a good impression of someone. However, this was clearly not the case. The Moon Empress had been suppressing the anger and killing intent in her heart. As Hui Yao's holiness, the Moon Empress knew that she shouldn't attack Goddess Lien. Before the Radiance 100 sequence ended, in order to lure out the members of the 2 pages of the Pagoda Canon, he had to hide his strength. However, the Pity Goddess dared to have designs on Lin Yuan, and the Moon Empress felt that she couldn't swallow this anger no matter what. Lin Yuan's words were like a good medicine. The Moon Empress' anger and killing intent had yet to dissipate. However, Lin Yuan's words warmed the Moon Empress' heart. The Moon Empress took a deep breath and loosened her clenched fists. The Freedom Federation and the Pagoda Canon were going to make a big move against the Republic of Radiance. Right now, wasn't Hui Yao also playing a big game of chess? Lan Sun could sense the intense tension between the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation. He couldn't help but feel that he was unlucky. Lan Sun wasn't afraid that the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation would really fight. The Azure Federation had always been neutral. If the 2 sides really fought, it would affect the Azure Federation's trade. However, neither side would lose their heads and really make a move against the Azure Federation. No matter which side the Azure Federation helped, it would tilt the originally balanced scales. However, the Azure Federation could no longer stay out of this conflict. This was because Yin Lin had publicly expressed her support for the Radiance Federation. She didn't even hesitate to expose Freedom Envoy Chen Yu's conspiracy. Lan Sun promised to stand on Yin Lin's side. Since the tension had already risen, in order to not let the 2 sides use force, Lan Sun decided to let the 2 sides compete on the stage. Since the 2 of your federations plan to let the younger generation fight, Each of you will send a Federation envoy. How about this? I'll be the banker and carry out a bet. The two federations can each support their own federation's team. Each federation will send two holiness to carry out the bet. No matter how many resources are bet on their own federation's team, the loser will have to compensate the winner with the corresponding resources. In addition, I'll take out 3 additional top-notch mutant waters as a gift from the banker to the winning side. When the pity goddess publicly recruited Black, Li Su knew that it was not good. He might have unilaterally cancelled the cooperation with the Pagoda Cannon. However, if the situation changed too much according to the original plan, the second page revival was not stupid and would definitely be able to see the clues. In that case, it would not be good. He could unilaterally cancel the cooperation with the second page revival, but he still had to borrow the second page revival's strength. If the second page revival found out that something was wrong, he would not be able to borrow the strength. Li Su didn't know what the pity goddess was thinking. She didn't even care about the Federation's geniuses. Now, she had come to the Radiance Federation to rope in other people's geniuses and was rejected. Li Su didn't know if the pity goddess felt ashamed. Anyway, at this moment, Li Su felt that she had lost all her face. Lan Sun's current proposal could just stabilize the situation. There wouldn't be any more changes. It would break her original plan. At the thought of this, Li Su was the first to respond. I'll bet on 10 island whales, 3 of which have strategic grades of S rank. In addition, I'll add 1,000 tons of spiritual materials from Mythbreed phase. Li Su's bet made all the candidates, including the Star Web viewers, open their mouths. 10 island whales and 1,000 tons of spiritual materials produced from Mythbreed phase. What kind of wealth was this? If one wanted to cultivate an adult island whale after synthesizing Radiance dollars, the expenditure of Radiance dollars had to be measured in units of trillions. There were many types of Mythbreed phase, big and small. However, only the core of Mythbreed phase could be called spiritual materials. It had medicinal value and could be used by creation masters. Even if 1,000 tons were all from large Mythbreed phase, it would require at least 300 of them. An ordinary person simply couldn't understand such wealth. Moreover, among the 10 island whales, 3 of them had strategic grades of S rank. The value of an S rank island whale was often twice that of an ordinary island whale. Before everyone could sigh with emotion, a cold voice rang out. Aren't you ashamed to take out this little thing as a bet? Chapter 1695. When the Moon Empress had publicly roped him in, the anger in her heart had surged. Although it was for the sake of the overall situation. For the sake of her responsibility, the Moon Empress had forcibly suppressed the anger in her heart. However, the unhappy Moon Empress still needed a place to vent. Right now, Li Su was the best place for her to vent. Li Su's face stiffened when he heard the Moon Empress' words. 10 island whales and 1,000 tons of spiritual materials from Mythbreed phase were definitely not a small amount of resources. Taking out this amount of resources might not be enough to hurt Li Su. However, Li Su was not a creation master. It was impossible for him to have more resources than the Moon Empress. As soon as the Moon Empress opened her mouth, Li Su knew what she meant. The Moon Empress was going to use resources to suppress him. However, Li Su, who understood the Moon Empress' thoughts, did not feel angry. Instead, he was abnormally happy. In Li Su's opinion, there were 2 insurances in his team. There was no possibility of losing. The more things the Moon Empress was willing to take out, the more he would earn. This time, Nana was willing to send her precious disciple over. She wanted him to bring her out to be gilded. Given Nana's love for her disciple, she should have at least 5 treasured artifacts. In Li Su's opinion, there was no need for Nana's disciple Lu O to use his full strength. With just Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian working together with Chen Yu, they could defeat the younger generation of Hui Yao. It could be said that the Freedom Federation's younger generation had emerged in recent years. They were the most talented batch in the past 100 years. Li Su, who had confidence in his heart, said in a clear voice. The Moon Empress is indeed a Class 5 creation master. You have accumulated a lot of resources. You don't even fancy 10 island whales and 1,000 tons of Mythbreed spiritual materials. In this case, no matter how many resources you take out, I will follow. The Moon Empress' expression did not change at all. However, her cold voice was tainted with a trace of mockery. Li Su, this Empress remembers that the middle-rank devil you contracted has been promoted to the Great Devil level. It has shed a Satan's seed. This Empress will take out 20 island whales, 3 of which can reach S rank. 2,000 tons of Mythbreed spiritual materials and 50 tons of Creation Breed spiritual materials. 500 law crystals and 50 world crystals. And 10 tempered undying bodies. I don't need your resources. You only need to take out that Satan seed as collateral. When Li Su heard the Moon Empress words, his expression immediately turned strange. The seed of Satan was an evil spirit with the bloodline of a great devil. It could only condense one seed in its lifetime. The seed of Satan was mainly used for inheritance. It could allow other devils to absorb the seed of Satan. He would have the opportunity to comprehend the power contained within the seed of Satan. A devil could only fuse with one Satan's seed in its lifetime. The devil that Li Fan had formed a contract with, the seed of Satan. It was something that even the other overlords of the Freedom Federation coveted. This was because the devil that Li Su had contracted had very special abilities. Even though the other majesties had mentioned several times that they wanted to exchange for Li Sun's seed of Satan, Li Yuandu did not agree. Months later, there was no contract with the devil produced from the devil's church. What was the use of the seed of Satan? The Moon Empress had taken out 10 more island whales than him. 1,000 tons of myth breed spiritual materials and 50 tons of creation breed spiritual materials. 500 law crystals and 50 world crystals. There were also 10 cleansed immortal bodies. These resources were easy to obtain. With Li Su's strength, as long as he was willing to spend time, he could obtain all of these. However, things like law crystals, world crystals, and cleansed immortal bodies. These were things that Li Su could not obtain through himself. Because every single person in the Freedom Federation cared about their own personal interests. It was the same for the overlords. Every time there was a worship in the Freedom Temple, the chairs that the creation masters of the Freedom Federation sat on. They were all different from the chairs that the other overlords sat on. The Class 5 creation masters of the Freedom Federation enjoyed far better treatment than the regular overlords. The Goddess of Mercy was a Class 5 creation master. Every time Li Su begged the Goddess of Mercy to obtain a batch of creation master resources, the Goddess of Mercy would take away a large batch of resources from Li Su. This amount of resources was even more than the Mother Goddess Federation, the Sand Continent Federation, the Storm Federation, the Haedong Federation, and the other federations that had Class 5 creation masters. If he traded with the other federations' Class 5 creation masters, he would have to take out even more resources. As a result, the Freedom Federation's overlords would basically be in contact with other large federations that had Class 5 creation masters. There was a deep connection. The preciousness of the Class 5 creation master resources made Li Su especially covet the resources that the Moon Empress offered. Under normal circumstances, Li Su would not use the Satan seed as a bet no matter what. However, after feeling that the Radiance Federation's side had no chance of winning, Li Su decided to accept it. He recalled that this was the Radiance Federation, and any negotiation or bet in the Radiance Federation. It was impossible to give him an absolute guarantee. Thinking of this, Li Su took out his Satan seed. The moment a black-purple crystal appeared in Li Su's palm, an evil and ominous aura quickly gushed out. Since Lan Sun is the banker, both sides will hand over the resources to Lan Sun. In the end, Lan Sun will hand over the resources to the winning side. Upon hearing Li Su's words, the Moon Empress took out a moonstone that was polished into a moon-shaped pendant. This moonstone pendant contains the resources that I mentioned. After speaking, the Moon Empress threw the moonstone pendant at Lan Sun. Since Lan Sun had proposed to be the banker, he was naturally prepared to help both sides accept the bet. The bet between the Moon Empress and Li Su made the other 12 eminences of the Radiance Federation look at each other. From the Moon Empress meaning, she was certain that her disciple could defeat the Freedom Federation's envoy team. He could also obtain the middle-rank devil that the Pity Goddess had taken out. The Moon Empress was now trading the devil's seed in Li Su's hands. It was for when Lin Yuan formed a contract with that middle-rank devil, he would be able to use it. It would give that middle-rank devil a chance to obtain a new ability. It could be said that the Moon Empress had made sufficient plans for Lin Yuan. However, did the Moon Empress really believe that he could defeat the members of the Freedom Federation's envoy team? The Freedom Federation's envoy team had insisted on challenging, so they must have the confidence to win. Although the Radiance Federation's side had already prepared for it, during the competition, many majesties weren't completely unprepared for the possibility of losing. A few of the Star Web viewers had temporarily lost the ability to think. They learned that the Moon Empress and the Freedom Federation's eminence were carrying out a shocking bet. 7017K. Chapter 1696. Ordinary people who had never even heard of the island whale. He had no idea what the Moon Empress was talking about. However, he also knew that these things should be very valuable. Pity the Moon Empress and Li Su had made such a huge bet. His interest was piqued and he said, "There should be many uncontracted fairy source-type life forms in the Radiance Federation's treasury, right? I want 300 uncontracted fairy source-type life forms. For this, I can give you 150 sets of Fey bloodlines. Apart from that, I will also take out 200 different insect-type carcinoma Fays and 5,000 bronze/epic Fays. 100 bronze/legend Fays as the wager. I don't know what your Radiance can take out to bet with me." As soon as the Lien god's words left her mouth, the star web exploded. The island whale was a mythical and creation-breed spiritual material. It was too unfamiliar to the ordinary audience. However, bronze/epic Fays and bronze/legend Fays were rare. It was closely related to low-ranked spirit chi professionals. Everyone knew how expensive a bronze/epic Fey was. They cost 3,000 to 45 million Radiance dollars each. 5,000 of them were equivalent to a gamble of 200 billion Radiance dollars. A bronze/epic Fey was a legendary existence. This kind of thing had always existed in legends. At that time, Chu Xi had revealed her bronze/fantasy breed Iron Wild Bull. That was why he was once known as the Radiance Sect's #1 genius. Maple Snowy Night, what? 5,000 bronze/epic Fays. 100 bronze/legend Fays. What kind of Fey is this? Oh my god. My head is a little dizzy now. I can't think of anything that's as valuable as these spiritual items. Guan Haotian, Mom asked me why I was kneeling. I also want to know why. It's just that you can't control your knees. Peace is a blessing. For the Freedom Federation to be willing to take out such a large amount of resources, just how confident are they? The Moon Empress and the Freedom Federation's Her Majesty are both so confident. Do you guys think we can win or they can win? Glass Heart. Such a huge bet to bet on the victory of this competition. I think Lord Lu Yifan, Black, and Gao Feng will probably fight with their lives on the line. After a short period of shock, the Star Web audience had completely realized that the current situation was different. In the past, many people had naively thought that the Freedom Federation had proposed a friendly match because they wanted to wrestle with the Radiance Federation before the 2-year promise. But now that the stakes were out, no one would be so naive to think that way. After all, no matter what, it was impossible for him to lose these priceless items to the other party so easily. Moreover, the Radiance and the Freedom Federation's relationship wasn't good at all. The Star Web audience's original mentality of watching a good show had already turned into anger when Lu Yifan, the Radiance envoy, had been pulled down. But now, his anger had completely turned into anxiety and heaviness. Regardless of victory or defeat, there would be heroes risking their lives and bleeding for the Radiance Federation. The reason why Goddess Lien proposed such a bet was mainly because she wanted to exchange some of the resources in her hands. The Pity Goddess was interested in collecting fairy source-type life forms and turning them into dolls. Therefore, the Pitiful Goddess wanted to obtain more fairy source-type life forms that she did not have. He took out the 150 fairy bloodlines and gave them to the fairy source-type life forms. There would be a chance to upgrade the fairy source-type life form's bloodline. Of course, this method of using the fairy bloodline to induce the fairy's own bloodline to upgrade. It was usually the most effective method for the first time. 150 sets of fairy bloodlines were required to enhance the fairy bloodline once. The carcinoma phase had always been the Pity Goddess's little toys. The Pity Goddess had done plenty of experiments with the carcinoma phase. Among them, the Pity Goddess had always felt that the insect-type carcinoma phase were the ugliest. Therefore, she wanted to use the insect-type carcinoma phase to exchange for some animal-type or plant-type carcinoma phase. As for the legend and epic phase, the Pity Goddess didn't need to take them out. However, since the Moon Empress was using such a method to suppress Li Su and destroy the Freedom Federation's prestige, the Pity Goddess didn't mind destroying the Radiance Federation's prestige. The Pity Goddess's Class 5 Creation Master standard was extremely high. During the Creation Master contest, the Pity Goddess had easily won against the Bamboo Monarch. The Pity Goddess had easily won against the Bamboo Monarch. The Pity Goddess had taken out so many Creation Master resources. On one hand, it was to put the Radiance Federation in a difficult position. On the other hand, she wanted to use this opportunity to harvest more. However, the Pity Goddess's plan had failed. Before anyone else could say anything, the Moon Empress had already spoken. This Empress shall accept such a wager. The fairy bloodline that you mentioned can be used to exchange for the fairy source-type lifeforms. However, it is a little too greedy for you to take out 200 insect-type carcinoma phase to exchange for other carcinoma phase. The quantity of insect-type carcinoma phase is the highest among the carcinoma phase. The value is far inferior to the animal-type and plant-type carcinoma phase. I will not use the carcinoma phase to exchange for the 200 insect-type carcinoma phase. However, the items that I want to take out aren't enough for the wager. I will need another 5,000 bronze/epic phase. And 150 fairy bloodlines. When the pity goddess heard the Moon Empress' words, she frowned slightly. However, her heart was filled with interest. What exactly was the Moon Empress taking out? The price was comparable to 150 sets of demon bloodline, 10,000 bronze/epic phase, 100 bronze/legend phase, and 200 insect species carcinoma phase. This amount of resources was equivalent to a Class 5 Creation Master's work for over a year. He wanted to hire a Class 5 Creation Master for a year and make him work day and night. There was probably no one in the world who dared to think like that. After all, Class 5 Creation Masters were the wealthiest people in the world. Moon Empress, if you can take out something that satisfies me, I don't mind gambling with you. 5,000 bronze/legend phase and 150 sets of demon bloodlines are nothing to me. The Moon Empress replied calmly. If I take out a pure eternal heart, you will definitely agree. The Moon Empress had already decided to publicly reveal her identity as a Class 6 Creation Master. The entire dispute with the Freedom Federation would definitely spread throughout the origin world. This was the best time for the Moon Empress to define a Class 6 Creation Master. Once the battle with the Freedom Federation's envoy was over, Lin Yuan's identity as his disciple would be made known to the world. At that time, no matter how dazzling Lin Yuan was, once his identity as a Class 6 Creation Master was revealed, he would not be able to escape. It could also make everyone's gazes fall on him. It even made those who had ulterior motives against Lin Yuan somewhat fearful. 7017K. Chapter 1697. The other 12 lords of the Radiance Federation already knew that the Moon Empress could purify the eternal heart. Baidu search, however, he was still very surprised by the Moon Empress' words. No one expected the Moon Empress to appear at this time. He wanted to show the entire origin world that his Creation Master standard had improved. Before the duel, the Moon Empress attracted the pity god and Li Su's gazes to her. It weakened Lin Yuan's existence. It could be said that he had put a lot of thought into it. However, this wasn't the only benefit of doing so. At the same time, he could also see how Lian Shen and Li Su would react after learning of this matter. According to the duo's reaction, he would be able to deduce and investigate the Freedom Federation's Creation Master standard. Would he be able to reach this level? In the conflict between the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation, the Radiance Federation had always been the weaker party. After all, the Radiance Federation was only established after the Moon Empress became a Class 5 Creation Master. Only then did they begin to compete with the Freedom Federation and the Azure Federation for the three great federations. Before the Moon Empress became a Class 5 Creation Master, the Radiance Federation only had 2 Class 5 Creation Masters. Compared to the Freedom Federation and the Azure Federation, there was still a certain gap. The number of Class 5 Creation Masters would determine the number of Pinnacle Creation Master resources in the Federation. This batch of top-notch Creation Master resources would eventually evolve into an extremely formidable combat power. It could be said that the relatively weak Radiance Federation was on equal footing with the Freedom Federation previously. They would not be at a disadvantage in the conflict. First, it was because of unity. Secondly, it was because the old man sitting on the rattan chair had acted as a protective umbrella when the Moon Empress, Night-Leaning Moon, and the others had just set off. Although the old man and the Moon Empress had also reached that level of strength, they did not address themselves as gods. However, at its core, it served as a deterrent to the Freedom Federation. When Lian Shen heard the Moon Empress' words, she looked at the Moon Empress in disbelief. Your Creation Master standard has actually broken through to that stage. I can purify the eternal heart now. As she spoke, the Mercy God's expression turned gloomy. The Radiance Federation's 13 lords and Lan Sun were stunned by the Compassion God's words. Through the meaning of the legend of compassion, he immediately understood. The Freedom Federation already had someone like the Moon Empress who could purify the eternal heart. From the expression on Goddess Lian's face, everyone knew. The Class 5 Creation Master that could purify the eternal heart was not the compassionate goddess herself. Lan Sun sighed in his heart. He didn't expect that the bet he proposed would reveal such useful information. If a Class 5 Creation Master that could purify the eternal heart appeared in the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation, these 2 Class 5 Creation Masters could simply address themselves as Class 6 Creation Masters. A new era of creation masters. The purified eternal heart could help experts who had reached the eternal realm take another step forward. Someone who stood above the eternal realm. In the past, the Azure Federation and the Freedom Federation stood side by side. The Radiance Federation's latecomers were catching up. Now, it was a battle between the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation. The Azure Federation had fallen behind in terms of top-notch creation master resources. In the Azure Federation, no Class 5 creation master would be able to break through to such a level within a short period of time. When the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation truly wrestled with each other, the Azure Federation would no longer be able to maintain their neutrality. Thinking of this, Lan Sun sighed. Today's dispute was like the foreshadowing of the official opening of the battlefront between the two federations. From the very beginning, Yin Lin had participated in this battle. He was standing on the Radiance Federation's side. If the conflict really erupted today, it would be because of Yin Lin's choice. The Azure Federation might only be able to obtain the greatest benefits by leaning towards the Radiance Federation. Regardless of which side the Azure Federation leaned towards, the Freedom Federation or the Radiance Federation. The most important thing was to think about how to obtain the pure eternal heart. This was the world's top-notch creation master resource. The Freedom Federation valued individual benefits. If the Azure Federation wanted to discuss cooperation with the Freedom Federation, they could only discuss with the Freedom Federation's majesties. When discussing cooperation with the Radiance Federation, the majesty's will was a whole entity. Therefore, it would undoubtedly be easier to discuss cooperation with the Radiance Federation. There was no need to deal with many parties. The pure eternal heart was something that could be provided to the Azure Federation by any party. After all, the Azure Federation's experts who used the pure eternal heart to break through to the eternal realm would have to swear on their fate. There was nothing wrong with that. The Azure Federation would provide high-class creation master resources to the other federations. They would also request for it. When the origin world was about to be in turmoil, only by possessing formidable strength. Only then would they be able to protect themselves in the chaotic situation. A year ago, many of the federations that had Class 5 creation masters had already started to have disputes. Furthermore, the conflict seemed to be expanding continuously. If the Azure Federation and the Radiance Federation formed an alliance, and the Radiance Federation was willing to provide the pure eternal heart to them, no matter what request the other party had, it could be considered a kind of favor. Of course, the specific situation would have to wait until they brought the news back to the Azure Federation. The 12 Class 5 Azure Federation families would hold a meeting to jointly decide. The expression on Li Su's face had also changed drastically. Standing at the back of the Freedom Federation's envoys was the second page of Revival. Originally, he was still frowning and calculating the current situation. He was thinking about the purpose of whipping the sixth page. But after knowing that the Moon Empress could purify the pure eternal heart, the second page of Revival's parasitic body suddenly shook slightly. Immediately after, the grayish-black eyes suddenly turned purplish-black. In these purplish-black eyes, there was a reflection of the light in the eyes. It was as if there were two black candles burning with purplish-black light. Under the halo, inside a black coffin, the sleeping beauty slowly opened her eyes. There was a girl next door doll hanging on this woman's neck. Behind the doll, there were two pairs of gray wings, full of deathly stillness. It was as if it was announcing death. After a while, the body stopped trembling. The eyes became grayish-black again. It was just that a black candle totem quietly climbed on the chest of this body, which was shrouded under the robe. This figure took a step forward and walked to the middle of the few youths in front. An extremely elegant smile appeared on the originally ordinary face. It was as if the aristocrats from 1,000 years ago were sitting in the sky garden in a leisurely afternoon. They were preparing to taste the sweet tea brewed with peerless fruits. The Moon Empress alone accepted the bet of the Goddess of Mercy and Li Su. This itself was a very morale-boosting behavior. After the Goddess of Mercy and the Moon Empress handed over the resources as the bet to Lan Sun again. Lan Sun was looking at the spatial equipment containing the Goddess of Mercy's bet. After just one look, he looked away. He saw the new moonstone pendant that the Moon Empress threw over. Lan Sun looked at it obsessively for a long time before he opened his mouth. Instant Beast Evolution Quotient. Please bookmark this site so that you can read it online the next time there is an update. The mobile version of the first complete book was updated the fastest. Chapter 1698. The items used as stakes are confirmed to be correct. Next. Before Lan Sun could finish his words, Lian Xin interrupted him. She said, Lan Sun, before we start the bet, I want to see the eternal heart with my own eyes. Hearing the Lien god's words, Lan Sun's face immediately revealed a displeased expression. Damn. What the hell are you talking about? When the Moon Empress said it, you didn't ask to see it. Now it's in my hands and I've already seen it, but you want to see it. Don't you trust me or something? Lan Sun snorted coldly and held the moonstone pendant in his hand, injecting mental energy into it. Then, a heart that looked like it was carved out of crystal appeared in Lan Sun's hand. Around this heart, there was an exquisite scorpion with silver-yellow scales. The silver-yellow scales were decorated with gems that changed colors like the starry sky. These gems shone with a strange light. They were like opals that were used to make precious jewelry. The color of the scorpion's tail was different from the color of the scales, showing a transparent texture. It was just that there were many fine golden threads inside. These golden threads constantly wandered and gathered at the tail. The Lien god saw the crystal heart in Lan Sun's hand and the scorpion circling around it. She couldn't help but say, "A purified Jinbodi scorpion heart. The Moon Empress is really willing to take out the Jinbodi scorpion heart, which is ranked in the top 10 among poison-type fays. It just so happens that this heart is useful to me. I'll thank the Moon Empress first." The Lien god's words made it sound like she would definitely win. In response, the Moon Empress only replied in a cold tone. "Then I'll thank Concubine Lien in advance for providing that batch of resources for Radiance." Speaking up to here, the Moon Empress said to the candidates standing below, "This batch of fays will be sent to those who perform well in the test." The Moon Empress' words caused the Lien god's golden red fishtail to suddenly swing a few times in the air. The expression on her face didn't change and she still had a faint smile. But her teeth were gritted so hard that they made creaking sounds. Although Li Su was the Freedom Federation's majesty. At this moment, it was the Moon Empress and the Lien god who were opposing each other. Li Su didn't step forward to help. The expression on Lan Sun's face was very interesting. In this world, who didn't know that the goddess of pity was called Imperial Concubine Lien before she called herself a god? The Moon Empress was now addressing the Lien deity as Imperial Concubine Lien, but she was addressing herself as the Empress. It was obvious that he had placed himself above the goddess of mercy. Since the Moon Empress had broken through to become a Class 5 creation master, she was indeed qualified to do so. Furthermore, the Moon Empress held a heavenly favor spirit that was above eternity. Even if the Moon Empress wasn't as strong as Goddess Lien, she was qualified to speak to her on equal terms. The Moon Empress was using her power to suppress them. However, the pitiful goddess could not refute his words. In the bet, Lien Shen only thought of herself. As for the Moon Empress, she gave the bet to the examinees. Based on this method alone, the Moon Empress had warmed the hearts of these Radiance geniuses. Naturally, the people from the Freedom Federation wouldn't bother with such matters. Because of the Freedom Federation's environment, everyone was already used to it. Radiance's 12 eminences all knew why the Moon Empress was targeting the pity god. You fucking snatched the Moon Empress disciple in public to show how much the Moon Empress loved and protected her disciple. You should be thankful that he didn't attack you directly. Now, in terms of words, he definitely wouldn't give you any face. Even if the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation hadn't officially fallen out yet. Qian Yu saw that her eminence pity god, who favored him, had fallen into a disadvantageous position in the verbal confrontation with the Moon Empress. He quickly said, "Among the Radiance Federation's 100 sequence, there is a eminence's disciple. Our side has 3 eminence's favored disciples. For the sake of fairness, I would like to choose 2 of your eminence's disciples to take the field. Their eminence's disciples must have been carefully taught. Therefore, I think the Radiance Federation's eminences won't reject our choice." After Qian Yu said this, Chef Supreme's brows were tainted with a murderous aura. Zhongzhe was tainted with bad luck because his surging battle intent was uncontrollable because of the Tower Cannon. The Freedom Federation and the Tower Cannon were colluding with each other. Chef Supreme wouldn't believe that there was no trick involved. If they were to choose now, the Freedom Federation would most likely choose Zhongzhe because of the curse that had caused him to go crazy. If it was in the past, Chef Supreme would naturally be extremely worried. But now the situation had changed. Zhongzhe's bad luck had been suppressed by what Lin Yuan had given him. Zhongzhe's current combat strength was no longer the same as before. He had been in seclusion, and it was said that he had made a new breakthrough in the phase strength. A few days ago, Chef Supreme had just upgraded Zhongzhe's sacred source life form. If they had to choose, Chef Supreme hoped that the Radiance Federation would choose Zhongzhe. Since the other party wanted to choose, the Radiance Federation didn't refuse. Sun Zhongzhe Gulang and Anhe. They were brought to the Golden Stone Pillar by Chef Supreme, Bamboo Monarch, and Ji Changding's two subordinates. However, all of this was not over. The Star Web audience was surprised to find that behind Chief Guard Yi were Zhuo Ming, Right Palm Guard Yi, and the two Imperial Court envoys. They jumped down from the Golden Stone Pillar and walked toward the Silver Stone Pillar. The Star Web audience couldn't help but hold their breaths. The Star Web audience couldn't help but hold their breaths. Could it be that there were two Eminence's disciples in the Radiance 100? At the thought of this, Chef Supreme was very familiar with the previous 100 sequences. He couldn't help but look at Zhao Xiaochun, Lu Jie and Xia Qing. Lu Jie had originally been out of the 100 sequence due to his main Fei being damaged. Today, he had returned with glory and directly promoted to the 100 sequence's first rank. 3 years ago, Xia Qing had participated in the 100 sequence selection. In the first year, she had become a 100 sequence member with the 91st rank. From the second year onward, she had been ranked first. However, this year she had been beaten by someone and she had fallen to the third rank. Zhao Xiaochun's improvement was too great. She had jumped over 20 places and entered the 100 sequence's top 10. As for Long Tao, no one had guessed that he was Eminence's disciple. It was mainly because Long Tao had been the Radiance 100 sequence's third rank. This time he had risen to the second rank, but the improvement wasn't big. It took Long Tao 3 years to get to the third place of the 100 sequence. He had improved by more than 10 places every year. Therefore Long Tao didn't look as amazing as Xia Qing, Lu Jie and Zhao Xiaochun. Just as the audience was guessing, Left Palm Guard Zhuo Ming, Right Palm Guard Yi and the two Imperial Court envoys. They all came to the first and third Silver Stone Pillars and knelt on one knee. Meanwhile, Lu Jie and Xia Qing were already on the two Silver Stone Pillars. They had used their own means to come to the ground. Lu Jie stood in the middle of the two left and right palm guards, while Xia Qing stood in the middle of the two Imperial Court envoys. At this moment, Lu Jie and Xia Qing's identities were self-evident. Instant Beast Evolution Quotient. Please bookmark this site so that you can read it online the next time there is an update. Read the first complete book in advance. The mobile version is the fastest. Chapter 1699. After being a Radiance 100 sequence member for so many years, they had already speculated about Xia Qing's identity. Therefore, with Xia Qing's identity, the Radiance 100 sequence members were not too surprised. In the battle with Long Tao, Lu Jie had completely crushed him with a few insect species carcinoma phase. It could be said that Long Tao's Diamond/Fantasy 4 Sea King Cretaceous Dragon basically had no means to fight against him. It could be said that Long Tao's Diamond/Fantasy 4 Sea King Cretaceous Dragon basically had no means to fight against him. Lu Jie was originally a Radiance 100 sequence member, and he was ranked in the top 30 or so. It could be said that Lu Jie's strength had suddenly increased. 2 years ago, Lu Jie's main Fei, the Insect Queen, had been injured and could not fight. The top 100 sequence members were aware of his withdrawal from the 100 sequence. Therefore, everyone had been shocked by Lu Jie's increase in strength. Now, Lu Jie was truly at the top of the 100 sequence in the truest sense. It turned out that Lu Jie had become Chief Guard Ye's disciple. Lu Jie and Xia Qing were walking side by side in front. The left Chief Zhuo Ming and the right Chief Yuzhe were walking half a body behind Lu Jie. The two Imperial Court envoys followed behind Xia Qing. The audience on Star Web started to discuss intensely. Time like love, damn. I've always liked Lu Jie in the 100 sequence. Lu Jie has not appeared for 2 years, but I have never stopped being his fan. It turns out that Lu Jie is Chief Guard Ye's disciple. As a Cold Frost City citizen, I will never forget Lord Lu Jie's contributions to Cold Frost City. I'm staring at you. I'm a member of the Cold Frost Guards. When I arrived, Lord Lu Jie had already exhausted his spiritual power, and the Insect Queen was also seriously injured. However, he was still commanding the almost completely disabled Insect Tide and stubbornly fighting against the dimensional lifeforms. Lord Lu Jie is worthy of respect. Yuning, Xia Qing and Lu Jie are both Her Majesty's disciples. One of them is ranked first while the other is ranked third. If both of them join the team, Lord Lu Yifun's team will have a high chance of winning. Star C. To be honest, I have already fought my way to the Celestial Stairway Palace. Look at those anonymous and very young people in the palace. They are most likely Her Holiness disciples. The other Holiness disciples might not be weaker than Lu Jie and Xia Qing. They might even be stronger. Don't ask me how I know because I seem to have encountered it before. Building block. Why do I feel that Black and Lin Yuan are becoming more and more alike? Other than the fact that the spirit item doesn't match the age, height, and even the aura he emits are exactly the same. If a person can split a Fey combination into two, I will not believe it no matter what. The comments section of all the major livestream rooms on Star Web was filled with intense discussions. Normally this would be the time for everyone to make fun of each other. But now no one dared to play along. This was because the audience knew that there would be 10 prodigies who could represent the Radiance in a while. They were going to bet their lives and the glory of the Radiance Federation to fight to the death with the Freedom Federation. Those scholars, Master D if placed in the past. They would definitely expose Xia Qing and Lu Jie. He even went to analyze Black's Fey. But now these scholars and creation masters didn't have such thoughts. Instead, he held his breath and prayed in his heart for support. After Lu Jie and Xia Qing stood on the golden stone pillar, Quan Huiyao couldn't help but hold his breath and look at the 5 prodigies, Lu Jie, Xia Qing, Zhongzhe, Gulang and He. 4 men and 1 woman. These 5 people were undoubtedly the strongest in the Radiance Federation's younger generation below the age of 25. Everyone didn't know much about He, Zhongzhe and Gulang. They didn't know much about Lu Jie and Xia Qing's abilities. Even the Radiance 100 sequence members didn't know what Xia Qing's main Fey was. How many insect-type carcinoma Feys did Lu Jie have? However, the crowd had just seen how Gao Feng had single-handedly assisted a team of over 10,000 people. He also allowed this team to survive the insect tide. Therefore, no matter what, the strength of the other disciples would definitely be able to reach Gao Feng's standard. At this moment, Lu Jie and Zhongzhe, who were standing behind Night Leaning Moon and Chef Supreme, couldn't help but look at Lin Yuan. When the 6 of them were discussing the battle strategy, Lin Yuan gave Zhongzhe a big box of astrologer Jitan's pollen. Zhongzhe's curse hadn't been completely removed. However, he had just used that big box of astrologer Jitan's pollen. No matter what kind of influence he received, Zhongzhe could endure it without fear. Zhongzhe could not help but clench his fists. The current Zhongzhe had already undergone a qualitative change compared to the Zhongzhe at the Nyx assembly. They couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Most of his improvements were thanks to Lin Yuan. She gave him a heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearl that contained the goddess Gossamer. It was this heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearl that had purified Zhongzhe's heaven-burning Ho bloodline. The strength of a Fey with the desolate bloodline was more dependent on its bloodline than its rank. Previously, Zhongzhe's desolation bloodline Fey, the burning heaven centipede, had been able to fight above its rank. Right now, it was much easier for Zhongzhe to fight someone of a higher rank than him. A few months ago he was still competing with Lin Yuan. Now, it was very likely that it would join forces with Lin Yuan to fight against the enemy. Zhongzhe was someone who loved to fight. He loved to fight against powerful opponents. However, compared to the enjoyment he had during the battle with Lin Yuan, it was much better. Zhongzhe wanted to join forces with Lin Yuan to fight against this group of enemies who had violated the glory of the Radiant sect. Lu Jie's thoughts were very simple. He would go on stage and block in front of Lin Yuan to protect him. He would fulfill his duties as a retainer. Then he would do his best to defeat the opponent. And his gaze fell on Lu Yifan, who was on the 7-colored stone pillar at the side. It could be said that since he was very young, and he had been looking up to Lu Yifan's growth, he had been following Lu Yifan's footsteps. Now, and he really wanted to go to the battlefield with his senior brother Lu Yifan and fight against the enemy together. If only senior brother could see his growth over the years. If it was according to Anhe's character in the past, and he would definitely try his best to fight for it. However, the current Anhe would no longer do so. Because Anhe was very clear about his position in the team. It faintly overlapped with his senior brother Lu Yifan's position. Going up himself wasn't a good choice for the situation at all. Of course, all of this could not be done just by thinking about it. As for who would go on stage to compete, it depended on how the Freedom Federation's envoy would choose. At this moment Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian, as well as the other independent 100 sequence members, they had already walked to Qian Yu's side. Because they were afraid of encountering accidents along the way. Therefore, the Freedom Federation had brought a few more independent 100 sequence members. Instant Beast Evolution Quotient, please bookmark this site so that you can read it online the next time there is an update. Read the first complete book in advance. The mobile version is the fastest. Chapter 1700. The body occupied by the second page of Revival did not move forward at all. This caused Li Su to frown and look at the body occupied by the second page of Revival. In the end, Li Su suddenly realized. The eyes of the body occupied by the second page of revival were very different from before. If the eyes of the second page of revival were dead and gloomy before. But now, the eyes of this independent 100 sequence member had become extremely confident and elegant. It was as if nothing in the world was worthy of his attention. This aloof attitude made Li Su feel an inexplicable sense of pressure. The independent 100 sequence member, who was occupied by the second page of revival, looked at Li Su. A smile full of many meanings appeared on his face. Then he walked behind Li Su in a dignified manner. The second page of revival's action surprised Li Su. In Li Su's understanding, he was now under the Mountain River State Bells, the second page of revival. At that moment, he was on the second page of revival under the Mountain River State Bells, which was the Radiance Federation's defining weapon. He should be very afraid of being discovered by the Goddess of Mercy and the Radiance faction. But now, he dared to stand within 5 meters of the Goddess of Mercy. Li Su's strength was 1 level lower than the Goddess of Mercy. If Li Su stared at the body occupied by the second page of revival, he could faintly sense a trace of difference. Therefore, Li Su felt that it was impossible for the Goddess of Mercy not to see the clues. However, the Goddess of Mercy did not find out. The changes on the second page of revival made Li Su feel that things had completely changed according to the original expectations. In the cooperation, he had abandoned the second page of revival. The second page of revival did not keep his original promise. But in the end, Li Su did not choose to expose the second page of revival's identity. Because Li Su knew very well that he and the second page of revival had the same goal. They both wanted to target Hui Yao. In a magnificent castle, there was a huge chandelier hanging. This chandelier did not emit light. However, it illuminated the entire hall a little dazzlingly. The light mainly came from the crystal hearts hanging on the chandelier in the middle of the hall. There seemed to be a kind of fierce beast trapped inside these crystal hearts. From time to time they emitted a terrifying aura. In the center of the chandelier there was a bead string. This bead string was very inconspicuous. However, it was like a star shining with 9-colored light. Upon closer inspection, this string of beads was made up of small cubes the size of fingernails. These grids seemed to be able to obtain some kind of power. It was as if he could immediately separate a dimension. 8 huge black coffins formed a ring and stood in the middle of the grand hall of the castle. Among them, the lids of the 6 paths black coffins were tightly shut. Only the 2 black coffins were open. The beautiful woman who had just woken up from the black coffin used her hand to comb her long purplish black hair. She had snow-white skin, purple hair, and a pair of phoenix eyes. It was supposed to give off a sharp feeling. However, a small and exquisite nose forcefully dispelled the sharpness of her phoenix eyes. It made the woman look elegant and noble. Occasionally, when he smiled, his face would reveal a scheming expression. It was as if he could come up with a grand scheme that would destroy all living things in the world in an instant. The woman looked at the figure shrouded in crimson robes standing not far away from her. "Crimson Page, thank you for your hard work. When those little toys were killed, you needed to wake up in advance and take charge of the situation. Although I didn't wake up naturally, I learned that the loss of the seeds of the Gardener Konjac would affect the awakening of the hibernators of the 100-year plan, so I woke up in advance. But the fire in my fate has been ignited. There's no need to sleep anymore. You should sleep for a while more. I will wake you up when the time comes." The figure shrouded in a crimson robe said with a special voice that could not be discerned. "Ingzhu, when the 7 of us are asleep, don't go too far. The awakening of the hibernators is not just to let the 7 of us wake up quickly. Don't affect the awakening of the hibernators, that's the bigger goal." The purple-haired Ingzhu page heard this. She raised her hand and took off a shining golden earring from her earlobe. She gently threw the earring into the sky. Then, the broken index finger of her right hand touched the earring. Immediately, a wave of vitality and soul power appeared on the earring. Then the earring turned into a strong man wearing a golden half-body armor. After the man appeared, he knelt down and said to Ingzhu Page, "Mother, please give me your orders." Ingzhu Page frowned slightly when she heard this. It was as if she hated being called mother from the bottom of her heart. "Just call me Lord Page too. Sister Falling Rainbow's Tower of Fallen Rainbow has been given the name of the Tower of Truth and brought to the Ageless Path. Go and take back the Tower of Truth. I don't want to wait for Sister Falling Rainbow to wake up and find out that her tower's name has been changed by the little toys. I will definitely melt the tower and build a new one. There aren't many infinite pure gold stones left. I can't let Sister Falling Rainbow repeatedly waste them." As she spoke, Ingzhu Page placed her hand on the head of the kneeling man wearing the golden half-body armor. Then a doll was pulled out from the man's head by Ingzhu Page. This doll was the cartoon image of the man in golden armor. Ingzhu and Yi casually strung the black rope around their necks that resembled vines and snakes at the same time. It collided with the girl next door doll with a pair of gray wings. It made a soft sound. Scarlet First Page said after hearing Second Page Ingzhu's order. The 5 pages of truth currently have the idea of unifying the horror pattern path. The 5 pages of truth is doing this to borrow the resources of the shockwave continent to attack the path to heaven. I want to collect another life providence. Don't touch him for now. Second Page Ingzhu said indifferently. Scarlet, all your plans and actions are always so slow. After the conversation with Scarlet 1 Page, Ingzhu Second Page spoke to the man in golden armor. In that case, teleport to the Radiance continent through the spatial transfer mirror. Then, I'll head to the Radiance Federation immediately and find the 6-page whip even if I have to alarm Lord Radiance. Execute them. Then you will be the new 6 pages. Let's call you the 6-page inverse. Before going to the Radiance continent, go to the dimensional source pool and choose a ruler's corpse. Eat this ruler's corpse and condense it into your sacred source life form. Upon hearing this, Scarlet First Page did not say anything else. Before stepping into the black coffin, Scarlet First Page took off her cloak. Instant Beast Evolution Quotient, please bookmark this site so that you can read it online the next time there is an update. Read the first complete book in advance. The mobile version is the fastest. Chapter 1701. In an instant, crimson tentacles shot out from under the cloak. As the crimson tentacles danced, even the golden light emitted by the birth providence string above the hall was completely overshadowed. A smell of filth and deathly stillness made Ingzhu air at the side. He stretched lazily, intoxicated and enjoying himself. After a long while, the filthy and deathly stillness finally disappeared from the hall. The long string of fate diagrams hanging from the chandelier emitted a golden light again. The hall became dazzling again. He watched as Crimson Page's coffin closed. Ingzhu's hands caressed the 2 dolls on her neck as she spoke. Before I fell asleep, I clearly had more than 10 dolls. But those old fogies from the epic temple destroyed all my dolls. Damn it, only a small revival was left. Now that I'm awake after 3,000 years, it's time for the black candle in the world to light up again. At this moment, a man with a face full of righteousness appeared in the Spirit Food Pavilion again. It could be said that the Radiance Federation's people's gazes were now focused on the Radiance Federation. They were all focused on the battle between the team led by the Radiance Envoy, Lord Lu Yifan, and the Freedom Federation's Envoy team. The Spirit Food Pavilion was full of customers, and there was no place to sit. Many people from well-to-do families would choose to book a table in the Spirit Food Pavilion for the past 3 consecutive days of the 100-sequence assessment. After logging out of the Star Web, he could order food from the Spirit Food Pavilion at any time to fill his stomach. Then the competition continued. The time in the Star Web was comparable to the time in reality. 1 second passed in the Star Web and 1 second passed in reality. Therefore, the Star Web retained the ability to sense hunger in the body. This was the only way to ensure that there would be no accidents when people logged into the Star Web. The situation was tense. The Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission was currently deciding which 2 of His Holiness disciples they should call. There was also an intense discussion on the interstellar web. But no matter how they discussed, they didn't come to any conclusion. This was because the Star Web netizens did not know the strength of Zhongzhe, Gulang, and He. Even Zhongzhe, Gulang, and He, and the others did not know what their main phase were. They didn't even have a concept of their positions in the team. Naturally, there was nothing to discuss. On the contrary, Lu Jie and Xia Qing were discussed the most. However, there were many people on Star Web who admired Lu Jie. However, most people weren't optimistic about Lu Jie's chances in the upcoming match. This was because Lu Jie's combat style was too mediocre. He only used one main Fei to control the Insect Sea to fight. If he were to face someone who was as strong as him, he might have a chance to fight. However, Lu Jie would be at a disadvantage against Feis with wide-range attacks. Just like black, the yellow sand that rose up from the ground and the ever-expanding sea of flowers. They were all Lu Jie's nemesis. But even if the audience held their breath and watched. However, the waiters and managers of the Spirit Food Pavilion were not allowed to log on to the Star Web during working hours. Therefore, these stewards hurriedly went forward to serve this burly man with a face full of righteousness. A few of the attendants had quite an impression of this righteous man. The middle-aged man with a face full of righteousness ordered a few dishes. Then, he drank the strong liquor in his glass as if he was waiting for something. He kept fiddling with the phone in his hand. The man with a face full of righteousness that the attendants saw was 6-Page Lashing, who had been hiding in Feng Ro's house during this period of time. For 4 days, Feng Ro didn't come to the Spirit Food Pavilion again. This made the attendants in the Spirit Food Pavilion feel very strange. Feng Ro usually relied on her large inheritance and her status as a Class 2 creation master. Therefore, she treated the Spirit Food Pavilion as a cafeteria. Usually, the Spirit Food Pavilion was the main place to hunt for women. Even if she found a partner, Feng Ro would still eat 2 meals in the Spirit Food Pavilion as usual. However, Feng Ro hadn't appeared for 4 days, which was really abnormal. Now, the middle-aged man that Feng Ro had taken away had come to the Spirit Food Pavilion again, but Feng Ro wasn't with him. The eyes of the Spirit Food Pavilion's attendants lit up with a strong gossipy light. This man couldn't have been abandoned by Feng Ro, right? They had seen how much Feng Ro liked this man, but they didn't expect that he wouldn't even last 7 days. He was really good-looking but useless. At this moment, 6-Page Lashing's phone suddenly rang. 6th-Page Whip snapped his fingers, and a layer of invisible spirit chi enveloped an area of about 3 centimeters around his body. This shield could guarantee that no matter who 6-Page Lashing was talking to, no one would be able to sense it. As soon as he picked up the phone, he heard a gentle female voice on the other end of the phone. Sure, you didn't act according to the agreement with 2nd Page Revival. The tower cannon must have discovered something. This trip to Radiance is considered an important operation for the tower cannon. Your non-cooperation made it very difficult to continue this operation. Your mission to infiltrate the tower cannon was to find out the secret of the tower cannon. Although that secret hasn't been found out, the captain has decided to let you come back first. If anything happens to you, our team will lose one of our main attackers, said Yang Ling. The rest of the team and I will be sad. Hearing the content from the other end of the phone, 6-Page Lashing frowned and fell into deep thought. 6-Page Lashing couldn't remember how long it had been since he heard someone call him Ashura. This title was really too old. It was so old that 6-Page Lashing couldn't remember it anymore. However, the captain's decision was one thing, and what 6-Page Lashing should do was another. The organization was afraid that he would be sacrificed, but 6-Page Lashing always felt that there was a big problem with 2nd Page Revival. Therefore, 6-Page Lashing didn't cooperate with 2nd Page Revival. To put it bluntly, he wanted to use this opportunity to find out what exactly 2nd Page Revival was. The other 7 pages of the tower cannon were all resources that couldn't be used. Why could 2nd Page Revival take all of them out just like that? There had to be some reason behind it. What the 6th Page Whip needed to do now was to verify this point. It could be considered an explanation for him infiltrating the tower cannon for more than 40 years. Thinking of this, 6-Page Lashing said to the woman on the other end of the phone. Shikai, don't call me Ashua next time. Call me by my team's code name Treasure Sword 4. Otherwise, my heart will be in a mess. After I find out 2nd Page Revival's specific identity, I will return to the team. After saying that, 6-Page Lashing hung up without hesitation. He then took out a star web card. A normal person's star web card would have their signature on the back. However, the one in 6-Page Lashing's hand didn't. Any Spirit Chi professional would obtain a second star web card after becoming a creation master. They would obtain a second star web card. 7017K. Chapter 1702. However, not everyone was willing to separate their identities. Therefore, in most cases, a creation master's second star web card wouldn't be used or activated. The star web card in 6-Page Whip's hands was obtained from Feng Ro. However, when he thought of the information about the Radiance Federation's star web that the Pagoda Encyclopedia had collected, he felt that something was off. In the end, 6-Page's flogging didn't take the risk and log into the star web. After all, the star web was constructed by 3 sacred source lifeforms. To the 3 owners of the sacred source lifeforms, as long as they did not set up restrictions on each other, the star web would not be a secret to them. If he were to log into the star web now, he might be detected by the other party. He might as well whip 6 pages and wait here. The 2nd page of Renaissance said that the 4 horsemen would come. In that case, he might as well whip the 6-page page and wait for the 4 horsemen to arrive before revealing himself. Thinking of this, 6-Page's whip frowned. This was because the 6th-page whipping reminded him of a few days ago when the 2nd page of Revival was called the Crimson Page that came out of nowhere. He addressed her as Lord Scarlet Page. However, he had never addressed the Page of Fate in such a manner. Within the protective shield enveloped by the mountain river set bells, an important weapon that stabilized the nation, Chen Yu pretended to think for a while and said directly, "I heard that Chef Supreme was once the Radiance Federation's #1 Class 5 creation master. I think Chef Supreme's disciple must have extraordinary strength. For the first person, why don't I choose Chef Supreme's disciple? I want to see what's so special about Chef Supreme's disciple. As for the second place, I'll choose the Radiance 100 Sequence's #1 disciple. We chose first but not third. We hope to have a friendly match with the Radiance Federation with sincerity." Chen Yu's words sounded nice, but the Huiyao clan's high lords knew what was going on. It was no secret that Zhongzhe was infected by misfortune. During the royal court assembly, Supreme Chef had specifically mentioned it. It was thanks to the joint efforts of all the majesties that the curse of misfortune was stopped when Zhongzhe was young, allowing him to keep his life. It could be said that Chen Yu's words were extremely shameless. It was obvious that he wanted to drag the weakest person off the stage. After all, the information that Lu Jie and Xia Qing had publicly revealed had been collected by the Freedom Federation. According to the public information, Xia Qing was stronger than Lu Jie. In a 5 versus 5 match, positional warfare had a lot of limitations. Unless everyone else cooperated with Lu Jie. If the formation changed, then the previous arrangements would be completely ineffective, and everything would be for naught. Only Supreme Chef knew that Zhongzhe had used astrologer Jitan's pollen. The other High Lords did not know about it. Night Leaning Moon had never publicly announced how many insect species carcinoma phase Lu Jie had contracted. He had also contracted the source-type cocoon demon embryo, which could allow the insect-type carcinoma phase to break through to a higher level. Thus, the other majesties couldn't help but feel a little nervous. If he lost this battle, it would be broadcasted to the entire star web. Huiyao's momentum would suffer a heavy blow. Now that the world was in turmoil, he had to use a real battle to let the people of the Radiant sect know that he was a powerful force. The importance of preparing for war. Huiyao had never been a sore loser. However, this was a match where they could only win and not lose. As for what would happen if they lost, no one was willing to think about it. Moreover, whoever's disciple would feel heartache. The Moon Empress, Night Leaning Moon, simply couldn't watch her disciple die. Even the cicada cry, which had always been inflexible, changed its tune when Gao Feng encountered a true crisis. Could he really not do anything? At this critical juncture, Lu Jie and Zhongzhe, who had been chosen, smiled. What Lu Jie needed the most was a chance to be by Lin Yuan's side in times of trouble. Now, in this life-or-death duel with Radiance Glory was about to begin. He was fortunate enough to be on the field and follow beside Lin Yuan. It was equivalent to fulfilling the two beliefs of the first and second half of Lu Jie's life. Zhongzhe and Lu Jie shared the same thoughts. Putting aside the fact that Zhongzhe's strength had increased, there was a huge change compared to before. Zhongzhe regarded Lin Yuan as his best friend and hoped to defend the Radiance Glory's glory together with him. On the faces of Enhe, Gu Lang and Xia Qing, all of them were visibly dispirited. Zhongzhe and Lu Jie glanced at each other before jumping down from the golden stone pillar. Lin Yuan, Li Nao, Zhang Zihao, and the others were a total of 800 sequence members ranked 91st to 98th. They also used various means to come to the ground from the silver stone pillar. They walked toward the back of Lu Yifan, who was already standing at the forefront of the Radiance candidates' formation. Lin Yuan, Gao Feng, Lu Jie, and Zhongzhe's expressions were as usual. However, Li Nao, Zhang Zihao, and the other 600 sequence members, they all knew that this was a battle that had to be cleansed with blood. Their strength was not even worth mentioning in this battle. The 6 of them might not even be able to defeat Black, who was ranked 91st in the 100 sequence. Moreover, the opponent's third-ranked Freedom Envoy had personally entered the field. It was obvious that there were 3 favored members of the Freedom Federation. If they were to enter the field, it was very likely that they would be beheaded in less than 5 minutes. It could be said that this was the moment that Li Nao, Zhang Zihao, and the other geniuses were closest to death since they were born. However, the 6 of them, who were already upholding the Radiance glory, did not have the slightest intention to retreat. They knew that they were no match, but their eyes burned with a fierce fighting spirit. Even if they were to die, their backs could not be bent. He had to die a worthy death and die a worthy death. Lin's gaze was fixed on Lin Yuan. It could be said that the Radiance Glory's current advantage was that they had one more disciple than the Freedom Federation. However, Lin was still worried. The information that Lin Yuan knew was all provided by her. As for the Freedom Federation, they had yet to cooperate with him. Even if they really wanted to cooperate, would they be able to tell him everything? Lu Wenqing saw that the people from both countries had arrived. Each of them had a Federation envoy at the front, followed by 10 people. He was about to announce the official start of the match. At this moment, Li Su, who had not expressed his opinion, stepped forward and said, "This friendly match has gathered so many elites from both sides. Why don't we make the match more formal?" According to the format of the 10,000 Nations Conference, the match will be divided into 3 general executions and 1 group battle. What do you all think? As the Freedom Federation's Majesty, Li Su had taken the initiative to propose the format of the match before the match. The Radiance Glory side had no reason to reject it. Once they rejected it, it would be equivalent to weakening their morale. However, it was different from the group battle. The general executions had a high requirement for the individual's comprehensive strength. They had to be able to hold a general on the battlefield. 7017K. Chapter 1703. The rules of the general slaying battle were relatively complicated. It was also the duel between the 2 major federations during the Myriad States Conference. It was even more important than the team battle. The general slaying battle was divided into 3 rounds. The first round was a 3 versus 3 duel. Each side would send out 3 people for the duel. Among these 3 people, one had to be the general. During the entire duel, the other 2 people had to ensure that their side's general would not be killed by the opponent. Apart from the general, 2 people from both sides were either severely injured or dead. The general could decide whether to continue the duel or not. For the second duel, the first general would remain the same. A new member would be sent out for a 2 versus 2 duel. The duel would be the same as the first duel. Either one would win by killing the opponent's general, or the general would voluntarily admit defeat. The third duel would be a 1 versus 1 duel with the first general. During the duel, it would only be considered the end if the opponent was killed or one side admitted defeat. According to the rules, the general slaying battle would be a best of 3 duels. However, to determine the winner of the general slaying battle with a best of 3 duels, there was a precondition. That was, the appointed commander must not die. Once the general of either side was killed, the side that died would be the loser. To put it bluntly, the established general had to be an all-around spirit chi professional. Generally speaking, an all-around spirit chi professional was better than a single-type spirit chi professional. Their abilities would be more average. However, in the general slaying battle, they would be able to achieve a surprising effect. This was because the general of the general slaying battle would be in the 3 duels. It was impossible to recover, unless one or one's teammates had the means to recover. However, once a healing-type spirit chi professional or a support-type spirit chi professional was sent out to recover, the team's combat power would be reduced. The team's combat power would be reduced when there were only a few people. If the general slaying battle was held, it would be an extremely difficult decision to determine who would be the general. Including the general, there would be a total of 4 people participating in the 3 general slaying battles. According to the rules of the Myriad States Conference, the 3 members who participated in the general beheading battle were not allowed to participate in the subsequent battles. The winning side's general could join the subsequent team battles. In other words, the general slaying battle required an all-around general to pave the way for the subsequent team battles. The Radiance faction's best choice was to send Lu Yifan to participate in the general execution battle. However, Lu Yifan was the 3rd-ranked Radiance envoy. If he were to participate in the general execution battle as the main general, the Radiance envoy would not be able to defeat him. Firstly, it would definitely cause Chen Yu to make a move. Secondly, Lu Yifan was not an all-round spirit chi professional. It was not suitable for him to participate in the general execution battle. The reason why the Freedom Federation's emperor, Li Su, proposed the general execution battle was precisely because of this point. However, apart from Lu Yifan, how should he choose the other famous generals of the Radiance Empire? In the 3 battles, the general had to control his own spiritual energy consumption as much as possible. This was to ensure that he would be able to fight his opponent one-on-one in the 3rd round. It was not to the extent that the opponent still had a lot of spiritual energy, but his side's spiritual energy had already been exhausted, and he would lose without fighting. Before Lu Wenqing could say anything, the old man sitting in the middle of the golden pillar looked in Lu Yifan's direction. He glanced at the younger generation behind Lu Yifan and said, "Hui Yao has no reason to reject such a request. Behind the Radiance Sacred Hall is a 10,000 square kilometer training area. Establish an island to compete for the assembly of 10,000 states. The terrain is very comprehensive. It's the most suitable place to carry out battles and team battles. After hearing the words of the old man sitting in the middle of the golden pillar, Li Su said, I was afraid that the Radiance Federation would choose to host the friendly match on Star Web. Actual combat can better reflect the Spirit Chi professional's combat character. Because being able to support life and death and not being able to support life and death are two completely different feelings. Although it's a friendly match, in the end attacks are blind. If anyone gets injured during the battle, I hope that the Radiance sect won't mind. At that moment, Li Su had accepted the general execution battle and the team battle on the Radiance side. He no longer hid his fangs. The bullet screen comments on Star Web had completely slowed down. Everyone held their breaths and silently cheered Hui Yao on in their hearts. The Freedom Federation's envoys and the Radiance Federation's side had also started to carry out simple tactical research. Lu Yifan looked at Lu Jie, Gao Feng, Lin Yuan and Zhong Zhe. In the end he looked at Lin Yuan and said, Don't worry. Among the four of you, is there anyone who can shoulder the responsibility of being the general in the general execution battle? If none of you want to go, I'll participate in the general execution battle. As the Radiance Federation's third envoy, Lu Yifan had experienced several general execution battles. He understood the pressure that the general would endure in the general execution battle. Therefore, Lu Yifan first asked for everyone's opinion and then expressed that he could take the initiative to shoulder the responsibility of the general. Honestly speaking, Lu Yifan's choice was completely for the sake of Zhong Zhe, Lu Jie, Lin Yuan and Gao Feng. Firstly, the general execution battle was too dangerous, and it was easy to become a dead soul in the battle. Secondly, the four of them had no experience in the general execution battle and did not understand how to control the Spirit Chi in the first two matches. Every year in the Myriad Nations Conference, the Federation would guarantee victory in the general execution battle. They would concede the first two matches. They would rather sacrifice 3 members to ensure that the general was in a state of complete victory. In the third match they would strive to kill the opponent's general and win. This was because there was no way to concede defeat in the third match between the generals. Under normal circumstances, in the general execution battle between the two major federations, one of the generals would definitely die. Lu Jie's goal was to protect Lin Yuan, so he did not step forward. Zhong Zhe pondered for a moment and felt that his combat style was mainly based on high burst. This combat style was suitable for being the main attacker, but it was not suitable for being the general. It was needless to say for Gao Feng. It was impossible for a soft support to survive being besieged by 3 of them. As for Li Nao, Zhang Zihao and the others, although they had become Radiance 100 sequence members, they did not even have a diamond/fantasy breed Fey. There was no difference between entering the stage and delivering themselves up. Just as Lu Yifan was preparing to enter the stage himself, Black, who was wearing a silver mask, stepped forward and said, I can be the commander. As long as I'm alive, I will do my best. Lin Yuan's words attracted the attention of Lu Yifan and the other 100 sequence members. Lu Yifan did not probe too much into Black's strength. He just asked, Do you know the risks of the general execution battle? Once you enter the stage, you and the opposing general will either be heavily injured or only one will survive. There is no way to concede defeat in such a match. 7017K. Chapter 1704. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded. He didn't make any promises and only continued to emphasize his point. I will do my best. Hearing Black's words, Lu Yifan took a deep breath. Then he said to Lin Yuan, Don't worry. In the general slaying battle, the main general is only allowed to use one prized artifact. This is one of the rules. You must remember it. Since you have chosen to be the main general of the general execution battle. Before the team competition, the team will try their best to meet your team's needs. You can choose your 3 teammates yourself. Based on the strength of the other team, if Chen Yu goes up, I will go up and help you. At the same time, I will do everything I can to protect you. Upon seeing that Lin Yuan had taken the initiative to assume the responsibility of the commander, Lu Jie could not help but look a little worried. As the main general, Lin Yuan could only help once in the first 2 duels. But if he went up to help, it would be equivalent to giving up the opportunity to participate in the team battle. This would greatly affect his team's combat strength in the team battle. However, Lin Yuan had put himself in danger. As a retainer, he had to consider the overall situation and could not follow Lin Yuan and share his joys and sorrows. Lu Jie blamed himself, but there was nothing he could do. After all, that was how the rules were made. Zhong Zhe and Gao Feng were very worried about Lin Yuan's safety. However, their thoughts were completely different from Lu Jie's. Both felt that Lin Yuan was indeed the most suitable candidate to be the commander. This was because Lin Yuan was an unconventional healing-type spirit qi professional. Not only could it heal itself, but it could also restore its spiritual power. This way, Lin Yuan could recover at any time during the battle. After the 3 general duels, as the main general, Lin Yuan was able to put himself in the best state as much as possible. This was very necessary for the 3rd match. Moreover, Lu Yifan had said it. With Lin Yuan as the main general, Lin Yuan could ask anyone in the team to go on stage. If the opponent's Chen Yu went up, Lu Yifan could follow. If the opponent sent someone favored by Her Holiness to fight, their side would also send a disciple of Her Holiness to fight. As a result, when the 3rd match of the general execution battle began, Chu Feng's eyes lit up. His teammates could do their best to protect Lin Yuan's safety. It was to prevent Lin Yuan from consuming too much spiritual power in battle. After making the decision, Lu Yifan took a step back. Lin Yuan took a step forward and arrived in front of Lu Yifan. Lu Yifan and Lin Yuan's actions instantly let the Star Web audience know. In the Battle of the Generals, Black had to take on the role of the main general. The Star Web viewers had never seen the face behind the black mask. However, it had been confirmed that Black was only an 18 or 19-year-old boy. Many of the Star Web viewers, regardless of whether they liked to criticize or not, at this moment, tears welled up in his eyes. A teenager who should have been in school. But he had already used his shoulders to shoulder the glory of Radiance. Using life and death to decide Hui Yao's reputation. In the beginning, many people thought that it would be a showdown between the younger generations of the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation. It was a friendly match and a challenge. However, after Li Su mentioned the 10,000 Nations Conference, all of the Hui Yao audience members no longer thought that way. The Assembly of Myriad States touched the hearts of every citizen of the origin world who lived in the Federation. After the Assembly of 10,000 States had ended, every federation had its own federation. They would always welcome the bodies of the dead envoys and knights back with national funerals. While the Assembly of 10,000 Nations demonstrated the strength of the great nations, it was also an elegy for heroes. Therefore, starting from Li Su's mention of the Assembly of Myriad States, all of the Star Web viewers knew that this showdown would be a bloody battle. Qi Zhongling, I used to love watching duels and Star Web duels. As long as they were more exciting, I would always go to the Celestial Stairway video library to watch them. But now, I don't know why, but I don't dare to watch the next duel. Saint Heart White Tiger, Black took a step forward. Is he going to be the main general? Oh my god. My heart is in knots. Black must win. Person taking action. The position of the main general is the most important in the Battle of the Generals. Why aren't the other 4 disciples stepping forward? But Black is the main general. I feel that it would be better for Lord Lu Yifan to do it himself, right? Remote Blossom, I think we don't have to think so much. Just pray and pray. I don't really dare to watch this duel, but I must watch it. I must remember how these heroes used their lives to defend the glory of the Radiance Federation. All the decisions on the Freedom Federation side were not like those on the Radiance Federation side, which were discussed by Lu Yifan and the other 10 teammates. On the Freedom Federation side, everything was decided by Chen Yu alone. At first, Yanling wanted to be the main general herself. As the Freedom Federation's pride, Yanling didn't really care about the Radiance Federation's younger generation. After all, Yanling had never suffered any setbacks among her peers since she was young. She was even favored by the 3 Her Majesty at the same time. However, Chen Yu immediately rejected Yanling's decision. He said to Yanling, Yanling, your strength is mainly reflected in your cooperation with Kai Hua and Yu Changjian. For this kind of Battle of the Generals, only the first match can guarantee that all 3 of you will be present at the same time. But if Kai Hua or Yu Changjian goes up for the first match, you will be able to participate in the team battle after killing that silver-masked kid from the Radiance Federation. But without Kai Hua and Yu Changjian, you won't be able to play your role. Chen Yu was in a bad mood. Her Majesty, who favored him, was openly trying to rope him in, and it made Chen Yu feel a surge of pressure in his heart. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to keep his position with Goddess Lien. Therefore, Chen Yu, who was in a bad mood, brought his emotions into the conversation with Yanling. Chen Yu's original intention was that Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian would be able to play the greatest role in the team battle. However, when Yanling heard it, she felt as though Chen Yu was looking down on her strength. This feeling made Yan Ling feel rather displeased. Qian Yu turned to look at the silver-haired Shota in the team. Luo said, Luo, why don't you participate in the Battle of the Generals? Why don't you participate in the Battle of the Generals as the main general? In fact, Qian Yu's heart had long been set on Luo. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian were Her Majesty's favored ones, but Luo was indeed Her Majesty's new disciple. The Freedom Federation could have many Her Majesty's favored ones, but there was only one disciple. Qian Yu didn't expect that after he finished commanding and was preparing to confirm the main general for the Battle of the Generals. Then Luo rejected him. I'm not suitable for prolonged battles, and I don't have the healing and spiritual power recovery ability. I will only participate in the Battle of the Generals. Don't ask me to participate in the Battle of the Generals. Luo had rejected Qian Yu's request and made him lose face. However, Qian Yu didn't say anything else. As Her Majesty's disciple, Luo indeed had the qualifications to say no. Since Luo wasn't willing to go, Qian Yu shifted his gaze to the Freedom Federation's second hidden card apart from Luo. 7017K. Chapter 1705. Standing behind Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian, was a blonde youth who stood shoulder to shoulder with Luo. Qian Yu said, Han Qi, you will be participating in the General Execution Battle. This General Execution Battle is a good opportunity for you to display your strength. You performed outstandingly this time and won the General Execution Battle. His Majesty Du Miao should be able to accept you as a disciple after you return. In the Freedom Federation, being a Majesty's favored and a disciple were two different things. Favored were only those of the younger generation favored by His Majesty. His Majesty would pour a certain amount of resources into the favored. Among the favored, they would compete with each other to gain face for His Majesty. If a younger generation could be favored by more majesties, then the status of the younger generation in the Freedom Federation would be higher. To His Majesty Du Miao, the favored were considered outsiders. For example, His Majesty Du Miao, who had the most favored, had 73 favored. Thus, in the Freedom Federation, becoming a favored was far better than becoming a disciple of His Majesty. This was also why Luo dared to directly reject Qian Yu. If any of Kai Hua, Yan Ling, or Yu Changjian were arranged by Qian Yu, even if the three of them were unwilling, they had no right to reject. Han Qi had long been a disciple of His Majesty Du Miao. Du Miao had publicly stated that. This caused some of the Freedom Federation's majesties to take a fancy to Han Qi's talent. They also did not accept Han Qi as a favored. He did not obtain the status of a favored, nor was he publicly accepted as a disciple by Du Miao. This caused Han Qi to be in an extremely awkward situation for the past few years. When he followed Kai Hua, Yan Ling, and Yu Changjian, he was often ostracized by Yan Ling. On the contrary, Luo was rather friendly towards him. To be honest, Han Qi felt that if he were to fight one-on-one against Yan Ling, Kai Hua, or Yu Changjian, it was a situation where he was certain of his victory. Compared to Luo, although he was not as strong as Luo, however, his own combat ability was indeed more comprehensive. He had his own methods for healing and support. He had developed according to the general of the General Execution Battle. Thus Han Qi nodded and said firmly, Sir Qian Yu, don't worry. With me on the field, I will do my best to kill all the people that the other side sends out. Actually, a month ago, His Highness Du Miao had given Han Qi a few pointers. He also gave Han Qi some resources. He seemed to have the intention of openly accepting Han Qi as his disciple. However, it was precisely because His Holiness Du Miao had made a move and clashed with the Radiance Federation through the astronomical phenomenon. He had been hit by some method of the Radiance Federation's Her Holiness and was in seclusion. As a result, Han Qi could not follow the envoys to the Radiance Federation this time. Obtain the status of His Holiness's disciple. Han Qi had thought more than once that if he obtained the status of Her Holiness's disciple, how would Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian dare to put on airs in front of him? Even if Qian Yu were to request for him to participate in the general slaying battle, he would not go, just like Luo. Even Qian Yu wouldn't dare to say anything. In Han Qi's eyes, all of this was caused by the Radiance Federation. Therefore, Han Qi hated the Radiance Federation from the bottom of his heart. In Han Qi's opinion, the Radiance Federation was blocking his great future. Therefore, Han Qi was already filled with hostility and killing intent toward the Radiance Federation's side even though he had yet to enter the arena. Qian Yu had just been rejected by Luo. Now Han Qi had given him enough face. Although Han Qi did not have any status, he was still a disciple that Lord Du Miao had chosen. This time, if Han Chi could win the general execution battle and return to the Freedom Federation, His Holiness Du Miao was almost certain to take Han Chi as his disciple. Qian Yu was quite satisfied that a future disciple of His Holiness was being so polite to him. Han Chi, the general slaying battle this time will depend on you. The general execution battle is a battle in which both sides will jointly select their leading generals, and then the leading generals will jointly select their team members. If the opponent doesn't arrange for His Holiness's disciple to fight, I will also match you with the liberal 100 sequence members that we have meticulously nurtured. Your individual combat ability far surpasses that of Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian. We'll wait for your good news. Qian Yu was complimenting Han Chi. However, Qian Yu's words caused the gazes of Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian to turn cold. The three of them were His Majesty's caretakers, and their sacred source life forms could be linked to each other. They had already been designated as S+ grade strategic resources by the Freedom Federation. Ever since the three of them had contracted the sacred source life forms, they had been placed on a pedestal. The resources that the three of them had used to increase their strength had not only come from His Majesty's caretakers. The Mirror God, who was in charge of the Freedom Federation's treasury, had also provided them with resources. Although the three of them were not His Majesty's disciples, the treatment they enjoyed was not much worse than His Majesty's disciples. Therefore the three of them were very arrogant. Although Han Chi's individual combat ability was indeed strong, what Qian Yu had said was the truth. However, the three of them still could not accept all of this with their pride. Qian Yu was the freedom envoy, so the three of them could not do anything. However, the three of them did not have the slightest good expression toward Han Chi. It was clearly Qian Yu's words, but the three of them had vented their displeasure on Han Chi. Han Chi, you are indeed our hidden card. But who can guarantee that the Radiance Federation does not have any hidden cards? Just don't screw up. His Majesty Du Miao has never confirmed to accept you as a disciple. If you do something embarrassing and are despised by His Majesty Du Miao, then His Majesty Du Miao will very likely give up on you. Go and choose a newcomer that he likes. Kai Hua and Yu Changjian were both people with deep thoughts. It was just that Kai Hua did not like to stand out, while Yu Changjian was slightly more impatient. The problem with their personalities was not considered serious. At the very least they would not be hated. However, Yanling was the kind of person who spoke without thinking, was harsh with her words, and thought highly of herself. This sentence of Yanling's was equivalent to raising 1,000 blades, stabbing into Han Chi's heart. It could be said that the few points that Han Chi was worried about had all been put out in the open by Yanling. Yanling's words made the Freedom Federation's envoy silent for a long time. Qian Yu frowned and glared at Yanling, but he did not say anything else. At that moment, the Radiance Federation's His Majesty Lu Wenqing was already standing on the golden stone pillar. He said, "This competition will be held in the Radiance Sacred Altars martial arts field in reality. This duel will be held in the Radiance Sacred Altars martial arts arena in reality. It will be broadcasted on the Star Web. All the specifications of the martial arts field will be built according to the Myriad Nations Convention specifications. The general execution battle will be held in the center of the martial arts field on the general execution stage with an area of 5,000 square meters. Next, everyone will move to the general execution stage of the martial arts field, 7,017 K. Chapter 1706. At that moment, the Radiance 100 sequence test had officially ended. This was because this was a battle between the younger generation of the Radiance sect and the younger generation of the Freedom Federation. He was no longer within the scope of the Radiance 100 sequence selection. Only the Radiance Empire's eminences, the Radiance 100 sequence members, and the members of the two Federation envoys would head to the training ground. However, everyone in the Radiance Federation who logged into the Star Web could see this scene in real time. Black was chosen as the general of the beheading general battle. All the Star Web netizens knew about it. In this battle, Black wanted to display its true strength and summon its Fae. In the past, the audience hoped that Black would use all his trump cards in the battle. It was to satisfy the curiosity of the Star Web viewers and find out what kind of Faes Black had. But at that moment, the Star Web audience's thoughts had undergone a 180-degree change. The Star Web viewers no longer wished for Black to reveal all his trump cards during the battle. Instead, he hoped that Black would have more trump cards to deal with the enemy. 8 months ago, a youth dressed in black and wearing a silver mask appeared out of nowhere. First, he saved Millstone Town under the Sea of Insects. After that, he stopped the rampaging exotic beast tied in the controlled Class 3 Abyss Dimensional Rift. He had prevented the crisis of the exotic beasts wreaking havoc. The young man was still dressed in black and wore a silver mask. He was given the title of Radiance's main general. Upholding the glory of the Radiant Glory, they would fight a life-and-death battle with the Freedom Federation. Every step of this youth seemed to be stepping on the hearts of the Star Web audience. Every step was so heavy, so hot-blooded. The youth's footsteps made the Star Web viewers suddenly understand. The reason why this youth was so determined was because of a will called Radiance and the responsibility to protect the land beneath his feet. Lu Yifan took 2 steps forward and spoke to Lin Yuan. I'm not too sure how strong you are. If after the first battle, you feel that the opponent's main general is too strong, I can send either Zhong Zhe or Lu Jie to help you in the second round. Do your best to kill the enemy's commander. This way we can avoid the third duel between you and the enemy's commander. Lu Yifan would say such a thing at this time. First, it was to give Black confidence. Secondly, Lu Yifan did not understand Black's strength. He intended to allow Black to choose its own teammates based on the actual situation. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan shook his head firmly at Lu Yifan. In a situation where the opponent doesn't send the favored ones, I only need Li Nao, Zhang Zihao, and the others to come forward and cooperate with me. I can do it, trust me. Hearing Black's words, Lu Yifan was slightly startled. From Black's words, Lu Yifan could feel a strong sense of confidence. He also had the ability to comfort people in times of crisis. Zhong Zhe and Lu Jie had seen Lin Yuan's strength. He did not think that anyone in the younger generation could wrestle with Lin Yuan. After all, Lin Yuan had obtained his sacred source life form a few months ago. He could deliver a full-powered attack that was equivalent to a Fei at the peak of Myth I. This attack was Zhong Zhe's sacred source life form, the Heaven's Crimson Flames, which had reached level 4. Zhong Zhe had activated the Heaven's Crimson Fire with all his might but was still defeated by Lin Yuan's attack. Even so, this duel still concerned Lin Yuan's life and death. Therefore, the two of them were extremely worried. At this moment, the Star Web viewers, including the Moon Empress, were watching the battle. They were also immersed in Lin Yuan's words. I can do it, believe me in this sentence. The Moon Empress took a deep breath and looked at Lin Yuan's hair. Shueshua was hiding in Lin Yuan's hair. This was the reason why the Moon Empress could be at ease. It was not that the Moon Empress did not believe in Lin Yuan. It was just that Lin Yuan was too important to the Moon Empress. The Moon Empress could not imagine what her world would become if she really lost Lin Yuan. Chu Xi hugged the mother of Bloodbath tightly. Her nervous arms were trembling, and her eyes were holding back tears. Chu Xi finally understood why Lin Yuan did not agree to let her participate in this year's Radiance 100 sequence selection. Moreover, he looked so determined. Lin Yuan must have known that this situation would happen. Feeling the trembling Chu Xi, the mother of Bloodbath gently hugged Chu Xi and said, Chu Xi, Lin Yuan will be fine. Her father, Shueshua, was only at the early stage of the Eternal Realm. In the Lava Land, he had absorbed the fire elemental energy that her mother had left behind. Her father's strength had reached the high-level Eternal Realm and was just one step away from the peak of the Eternal Realm. Her father's strength had reached the high-level Eternal Realm and was just one step away from the peak of the Eternal Realm. This kind of strength was enough to protect Lin Yuan. Moreover, the Radiance Elder and the Moon Empress were both present. Even if the Pity Goddess wanted to do something, there was nothing she could do. However, if her father really made a move, the situation of the entire continent would be in turmoil in an instant. The mother of Bloodbath did not understand the situation of the Radiance. However, it knew that the Radiance had just opened a Class 6 Abyss dimensional rift that connected to the Abyss world. It still needed some time to develop. Once the Radiance built a mirror image city in the Abyss world, even if the two major federations really fought, the constructed Abyss world would be a haven for the ordinary people of the Radiance. But now this haven had yet to be completed. All the way to the back of the Radiance Sacred Hall, at the center of the martial arts practice ground was the General's execution stage. Lin Yuan took a step forward and stood on the General's execution stage. On the Freedom Federation's side, Han Qi, who had been rebuked by Yan Ling, also walked up to the General's execution stage. He looked at Lin Yuan from afar. Han Qi said to Lin Yuan directly, "Those who participate in the General's execution stage now will not be able to participate in the team battle in the future. The two generals that we've chosen will each choose a teammate to go on stage. The first round will be selected first, and the second round will be selected later. What do you think?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan replied, Just follow the rules of the general's execution stage. Han Chi pointed down the stage. A member of the independent 100 sequence was chosen. Lin Yuan also waved at the 100 sequence member at the back of the team. When Han Chi saw the person Lin Yuan had chosen, he pointed at an ordinary independent 100 sequence member on the Freedom Federation's side. Yin Lin had given Lin Yuan relevant information on these two people. There was nothing fishy about these two people. However, the information given by Yin Lin did not include the purple-haired youth standing on the stage. There was also the silver-haired youth who had just stood beside the purple-haired youth. These two people, Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian. They were the targets that Lin Yuan needed to focus on. For some reason, Lin Yuan felt that there was something fishy about these two people. There was something fishy about them. As for whether there was anything fishy about these two people, Lin Yuan would be able to find out in the following duel. At that moment, Lin Yuan and Han Chi stood on both ends of the 5,000 square meters arena as the main generals. Two members of the Federation 100 sequence who had been selected to fight stood beside the two of them. The battle was about to begin. 7017K. Chapter 1707. Lin Yuan would take the initiative to step forward and bear the responsibility of becoming the lieutenant general of the general battle. This was because after he understood the rules of the general execution battle, he had waited in his heart. Lu Jie and Zhong Zhe each had their own methods. In a true life-and-death battle, he could not guarantee that he could defeat Zhong Zhe and Lu Jie. Lin Yuan did not know what trump card Zhong Zhe currently had. He did not know what Lu Jie's sacred source life form could do. It was very likely that a hidden card would suddenly open in the middle of a battle. It would greatly affect the situation on the battlefield. However, compared to the other two, Lin Yuan's Jasmine Lily could heal itself. Little Black could restore his spiritual power. In addition, he had the Jasmine Lily's exclusive skill, Life Imprint, and Xiao Hei's exclusive skill, Spirit Chi Imprint. With these two imprints activated, he could become a powerful humanoid beast in a short time. Both the Jasmine Lily and Blackie's grade and quality had been upgraded to Diamond X/Fantasy V. After a long period of accumulation of spiritual chi and life energy, Lin Yuan just needed to activate it. Even the spirit chi content of an Emperor-class expert's body might not be comparable to his. Lin Yuan could become an all-around spirit chi professional. Firstly, they had to rely on Lin Yuan's Fey compatibility direction, which would definitely shock the world if he revealed it. Secondly, Morbius' exclusive skill, Spirit Lock, could lock phase and contracted source-type life forms. They could complement Lin Yuan's combat style. After all, he was an all-around spirit chi professional. At a time like this, he naturally had to step forward. To be on the safe side, he could call Lu Jie, Zhong Zhe and the others. However, this would undoubtedly result in the team competition after the general's beheading battle. His team's members were unable to achieve the best combination. In Lin Yuan's opinion, Lu Yifan, Lu Jie himself, Zhong Zhe and Gao Feng. This is the best small group. Only when the five of them worked together could they display their greatest strength in a team battle. To deal with the long-planned conspiracy of the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission. For the Freedom Federation to dare to do such a thing, they must have already calculated Lu Yifan and Zhong Zhe's strength. Moreover, it would raise expectations. The variable on his side was Gao Feng's sacred source life form. Lu Jie's insect carcinoma Fei and himself. If they wanted to win, they needed to be in a state of complete victory. He had already seen Li Nao and Zhang Ziheo's strength. Both of them were at the level of the 100 sequence. He was an existence that Lin Yuan could only look up to half a year ago. But now, facing Li Nao and Zhang Ziheo, as long as Lin Yuan was willing to reveal his strength, he would be able to do so. He was able to kill the two of them in an extremely short period of time. In fact, if he wanted to kill Li Nao and Zhang Ziheo, he only needed to mobilize the source sand. It could be said that the other 100 sequence members, whether it was a team battle or a general battle, as long as they stepped onto the stage, they were destined to be cannon fodder. If the two sides clashed, it was very likely that they would be killed immediately. It was impossible for Lin Yuan to watch these 200 sequence members die. He still had to protect them. At this moment, the purple-haired Han Chi thought of something. He raised his left fist and said, "According to the rules, before the general execution battle, every general can make a request. My request is to allow the use of artifacts during the general execution battle." Lu Wenqing glanced at the ring on Han Chi's index finger, the short blade on his waist, and the purple gold bracer on his wrist. These were all artifacts. Activating a treasure artifact consumed spiritual energy. However, the spiritual power required to activate the artifacts was far less than the spiritual power required to control phase. The Freedom Federation nurtured His Majesty's favored. When the favored was very young, His Majesty would bestow him with an artifact. This artifact might not be very compatible with the favored. However, His Majesty's favored was still a blank piece of paper without many lines. Some His Majesty's favored took an unconventional approach. In order to increase their strength in a short period of time, they would use the artifact they obtained as the foundation and build a phase system around the artifact. With an artifact in hand, the Spirit Chi professionals' combat power and survivability would also increase. As for the Radiance Federation, even His Majesty's disciple would have a mature combat system and have his own style. After forming a contract with his first sacred source life form, only then would he obtain one, according to his current direction, tailoring a sacred source life form's main material, creating an artifact that was completely compatible with him. These two methods of nurturing the younger generation could not be said to be good or bad. The Freedom Federation focused on nurturing the Spirit Chi professionals in the early stages. As for the Radiance Federation, it focused more on the later stages. However, the Freedom Federation's nurturing method for the younger generation, it was undoubtedly more advantageous than the Radiance Federation. As long as the commander's request was in line with the rules and did not violate the principle of fairness, it had to be satisfied. After Han Chi made his request, he pulled out the purple-black short blade on his waist. This short blade looked like a beast's fang. It was densely covered with strange snake-shaped patterns. It was as though it was faintly absorbing the vitality of other targets in the surrounding environment apart from Han Chi. After Han Chi pulled out this artifact, the two Liberal 100 sequence members hurriedly moved 5 steps to the side. They quickly took 5 steps to the side. What the two of them did was to protect themselves. Otherwise, their life force would be absorbed by the purple dagger. Before the fight even started, they would become dry bones under this short blade. Han Chi's title in the Freedom Federation was Purple Demon Blade. The purple-black short blade in Han Chi's hand could be said to have become Han Chi's trademark. Han Chi was a typical example of being bestowed an artifact at the age of 10 in the Freedom Federation. All the phase and artifacts that came later were all paired with an artifact. On the side of the artifact a few days ago, the Moon Empress had given Lin Yuan a total of 5 artifacts. These 5 artifacts had been placed in the Spirit Lock spatial zone by Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan did not have any intention of using them. These 5 artifacts might be all-purpose artifacts. There were almost no restrictions on the user. However, Lin Yuan was not used to fighting with artifacts. In an evenly matched battle, he would use a power that he was not good at. It was very likely that it would have the opposite effect. Lin Yuan had many methods and did not need to worry at all. It was never about not having the means to deal with the enemy. Instead, it was about how to distribute the spiritual power in his body to be more reasonable. Just as Han Chi was about to take off the ring artifact in his hand and throw it into the sky, the 4 strange eyes on the ring rotated back and forth. Just as something was about to be summoned, Lin Yuan opened his mouth and said, "My request is that both parties can only use 1 artifact at most." Lin Yuan's words caused the smile on Han Chi's face to suddenly freeze. 7017K. Chapter 1708. In the general slaying battle, after one side made a request, it was true that the other party could restrict the other party's requests. Lin Yuan did not make any new requests. Instead, he used this opportunity to limit the number of treasures that Han Chi could use. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's request, Han Chi snorted coldly. "What is this? Are you afraid? You want to use a prized artifact to fight me? If that is the case, why don't you take the lead and state that both sides cannot use prized artifacts?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan shook his head. "No, I should thank you for making that request. In the general execution battle, I do have a prized artifact that I must utilize." After saying that, he took out a golden brocade pouch. This was the one that Chef Supreme had given Lin Yuan. A prized artifact made from the skin and stomach of the treasure cave golden toad. It was originally just a tier 2 prized artifact. However, after the Moon Empress refinement and the addition of the 2 treasure cave golden toad's eyes, the golden toad's body had become much stronger. The grade of this treasure had already reached 3 stars. Lin Yuan had just used Morbius True Data. He examined the purple dagger in Han Chi's hand. He knew that the purple short saber in Han Chi's hand was a 5-star treasured artifact. A 5-star artifact was forged from the body of a 5-star sacred source life form at the very least. A treasure artifact could inherit a portion of a sacred source lifeform's abilities. The treasure in Han Chi's hands was called the Demon Lizard Tooth Blade. It was refined from the teeth of a 5-star sacred source lifeform, the Desolate Demonic Lizard. Lin Yuan didn't know what the Desolate Demon Lizard's ability was. As a 5-star artifact, the Demon Lizard Fang Blade had 2 abilities that excelled in combat. Desolation Guard. By absorbing the life energy of the surrounding environment and living beings, one can form a shield outlined by demonic patterns for oneself. Any living being that comes into contact with the shield will have their life force quickly drained by the demonic patterns. 2. Race Judgment. After the Devil Blade absorbs the life energy of a life form, it will analyze the life energy. If there is a life form within a certain range, the life energy will be automatically absorbed by the Devil Blade. When Lin Yuan saw Han Chi's treasure artifacts function, his pupils suddenly constricted. He had always felt that Red Thorn and Silver Splendor were invincible to a certain extent. It was very difficult to be countered by a natural enemy. But now he was wrong. The treasure in Han Chi's hand, the Demon Lizard Tooth Blade. This was the trump card against Silver Splendor and Red Thorn. The first ability could even allow Han Chi to wield the Demon Lizard Fang Blade willfully and slash at the Sea of Flowers as he pleased. The life energy obtained from killing the Bone Lotus Flowers and Child Ramets. He was able to block the attack of the Gluttonous Vines. And once he used his second ability, Race's Adjudication. The Sea of Flowers formed by Red Thorn and Silver Essence would instantly become the source of energy for the Demon Lizard Fang Blade. It could be said that the Monster Lizard Tooth Blade was extremely effective against creatures that relied on splitting themselves to attack as a whole. Not only did the Demon Lizard Fang Blade restrain Red Thorn and Silver Splendor, it also had a great restraining effect on Wuxia. The current Wuxia was not only relying on the Insect Queen Sea of Insects to fight. However, Insect-type Carcinoma phase relied on rapid growth to wreak havoc. Right now, Han Chi could be used as the main general to ascend the general beheading platform. Lin Yuan felt that this was excellent news. Otherwise, Han Chi who wielded the treasure weapon, the Demon Lizard Tooth Blade. In a team battle, it would definitely be a scourge. Even a Class 4 Creation Master would not be able to see how extraordinary a Class 5 artifact was with just a glance. Only a Class 5 Creation Master that had contracted a sacred source life form would be able to pry into the artifact. Therefore, no one from the Freedom Federation felt that Lin Yuan had already seen through the Demon Lizard Fang Blade's ability. Han Chi was not a Creation Master. They did not know what exactly was the artifact that Lin Yuan had taken out. Knowing that this battle was not going to be easy, Han Chi kept the ring and put it back on his hand. He assumed an offensive stance. However, the Chef Supreme and the Moon Empress, who were very familiar with this artifact, were startled. They immediately understood why Lin Yuan had said that he had to use an artifact during the general beheading platform. The artifact that was made from the Treasure Cave Golden Toad did not have a trace of combat ability. It was a pure support-type artifact. Now that Lin Yuan had taken out this artifact, his intention was very obvious. He was planning to put the other 2 Radiance 100 sequence members inside. He was going to fight against the other 3 sequence members by himself. The massive hourglass in the center of the general beheading platform was about to turn. The moment the hourglass turned, the battle officially began. Lin Yuan looked at the 200 sequence members beside him and said, "In a while, you too will enter this artifact. In a while, when the battle begins, you too will enter this artifact." Lin Yuan did not say anything else, but the 2 of them knew why Black had said this. Their strength was indeed 1 level lower than Black's. In the battle, the 2 of them might die from that purplish-black dagger-shaped artifact right from the start. At this stage, the Radiance 100 sequence members knew about artifacts. It was beyond the knowledge of the 100 sequence members. The 2 of them walked up the platform and stood firmly beside Lin Yuan. This was because the 2 of them had already made the decision to sacrifice themselves to protect the glory of Radiance. At that moment, looking at Black's expression, the 2 of them were not bashful. They nodded immediately. Since Black had taken out this artifact, it meant that Black really wanted to protect the 2 of them. Otherwise, he would not have wasted the right to use the artifact for no reason. If the 2 of them insisted on staying outside, firstly, it would not have any effect. Secondly, Black might be distracted to take care of the 2 of them. Therefore, the moment the golden hourglass turned over, the 2 of them entered the artifact made of the Treasure Cave Golden Toad's skin and stomach sac. Before Lin Yuan could put it away, the artifact made of the Treasure Cave Golden Toad's skin and stomach sac. The amber button-shaped source sand on his sleeve had already landed on the platform. It turned into quicksand and escaped into the platform. A large amount of sand began to be produced. This was not a battle of survival. Not to mention the two independent 100 sequence members. Han Chi, the Freedom Federation's elite, had long understood the mechanism of using the source sand. He knew that the source sand needed time to produce sand. Therefore, Han Chi would not give Lin Yuan the time to produce sand. Originally, Han Chi wanted to kill 2 more Radiance 100 sequence members. However, in this situation, Black was the only one left on the scene. Han Chi could only use Black as his target. A purplish-blue shadow almost turned over as soon as the hourglass turned over. He suddenly charged towards Black. This purplish-blue shadow did not give Black time to summon his Fae at all. Black stored the 2 Radiance 100 sequence members into the artifact. Although it was extremely fast, it did take 1 or 2 seconds. In a battle between experts, 1 or 2 seconds was enough to determine life and death. Everyone who logged into the star web held their breaths, and their hearts trembled. It was obvious that there was no time to summon his Fae. Everyone saw Black suddenly clench his left fist. It faced the purplish-blue shadow that Han Chi released. 7017K. Chapter 1709. All the spectators on the star web had a doubt amidst the horror. What is Black going to do? Why is he using his body to touch the killer move? It was common knowledge that spirit chi professionals had weak bodies. Even ordinary people who were not spirit chi professionals knew about it. Even S-rank spirit chi professionals could use their spiritual power to support a spirit chi shield. The spirit chi shield had a spirit chi cyclone that could effectively help resist damage. Unless they were in a desperate situation, S-rank spirit chi professionals would never easily expose themselves to the opponent's attack. Firstly, using the spirit chi shield to resist damage consumed too much spiritual power. Secondly, the spirit chi shield was not comparable to a shield casually cast by a defense-type Fae. Black was a pinnacle Emperor-class expert with a Suzerain X/Myth 3 Fae. The strength of the spirit chi shield's defensive ability was about the same. It was about the strength of a Suzerain V/Myth I defense-type Fae's defensive ability. Black could not be an S-rank spirit chi professional. It was impossible for him to have a spirit chi shield. As a B-rank spirit chi professional, Black did not have any defensive ability. Everyone did not know if this was Black's defense in a moment of desperation or if he really had no other choice. He was prepared to use an arm as the price to block this dark purple figure's attack. However, this was clearly a pinnacle fantasy breed bluish-purple shadow. How could it be blocked by losing an arm? Moreover, if Black really lost an arm, even if he could not die, by using the time of losing an arm he could summon a Fae to block. Then Black would become a cripple. In the future he would encounter many restrictions. However, the scene that everyone imagined did not happen. After this bluish-purple shadow collided with Black's fist, a turbulent air wave swept in all directions. A faint yellow dust wave was set off on the general slaughter platform. Only then did everyone clearly see what that purplish-blue shadow was. These were spirit snakes that were about the length of a forearm, and their bodies were purplish-blue with faint golden patterns on them. Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check this bluish-purple spirit snake. He knew that this spirit snake was a Diamond X/Fantasy V Serene Bamboo Viper, a Wind Poison Dual Attribute Diamond X/Fantasy V. The specialty of Viper species phase was that they had a large amount of venom and were highly toxic. In the process of cultivating this Serene Bamboo Viper, its cultivation method focused on strengthening its speed and toxicity. Otherwise, if a snake species Fae didn't have any acceleration, it wouldn't be able to survive. It was simply impossible to cross a distance of 5 kilometers in 1 or 2 seconds. This kind of speed, in a sense, can be said to be extremely fast. It had already surpassed myth breed flying type phase. The hearts of the Star Web audience sank to the bottom. This was because the blue spirit snake did not simply collide with Black. Instead, he opened his mouth and bit Black's fist. Everyone thought that Black would be sent flying after being bitten by the blue spirit snake. However, a shocking scene unfolded before his eyes. The force from Black's fist traveled along its jaw and into the body of the Orchid Viper. The dark blue spirit snake was sent flying. It rolled on the ground a few times, its expression weary. However, he could still move normally. It was just that his lower jaw had been shaken so much that he could no longer close it. All the viewers on Star Web couldn't help but exclaim when they saw this scene. Then they cheered. Peace is blessings. What's going on with Black? Why is his physical strength stronger than a Fae? Black can't be a humanoid Fae, right? Star Space, it's simply great. I thought that Black would be severely injured by this blue spirit snake's attack. If Black is severely injured in the first round of the general slaying battle, he won't be able to proceed with the next 2 rounds. Lucky little panda, your hearts are too big. This kind of small snake species' Fae's strongest point is its unparalleled toxicity. Black's fist was just bitten by this snake Fae. Don't tell me you didn't notice. It's over. As long as a venomous Fae bites its opponent, it will be the strongest. Even if Black is really a Fae, he won't be able to withstand it, let alone a spirit chi professional. Han Chi felt the serene bamboo viper's injury and had a general assessment of Black's physical attack. Black's physical attack had truly shocked Han Chi. The power of Black's punch was actually comparable to the power of his 5-star artifact, the Demon Lizard Fang Blade. Furthermore, Black's punch was able to condense the explosive power at one point. Otherwise, the serene bamboo viper's jaw wouldn't have been so severely injured that it would be a problem for it to merge. Even though the serene bamboo viper was injured, Han Chi still revealed a smile as if he had grasped the situation. The serene bamboo viper had a kind of chronic poison. It would take nearly an hour for this poison to fully take effect. This poison would deprive a person's 5 senses bit by bit and affect their mind. Finally, they would become dependent on the serene bamboo viper's venom. Eventually, their minds would be controlled by the venom and they would listen to the serene bamboo viper's instructions. The snake venom might be constantly consumed, but as long as the serene bamboo viper injected more venom into the silver-masked youth's body, it would be able to keep controlling this youth. According to the 10,000 States Assembly's rules, any opponent that entered the general slaying battle and was attacked until they couldn't resist, they would become the victor's spoils of war. Black was about to become Han Chi's spoils of war. Han Chi remembered that Her Holiness the Compassionate Goddess was quite interested in Black just now. Han Chi planned to take the spoils of war that were completely obedient to him and offer them to the Goddess of Mercy. Perhaps if the Goddess of Compassion was happy, she would give him some benefits. Han Chi understood his situation very well. As long as he performed outstandingly in the general execution battle, he could defeat his opponent. When he returned, he would definitely become Du Miao's disciple. If he could obtain some benefits from the Goddess of Mercy, he would undoubtedly be able to improve further. Then he would fight for the position of Freedom Envoy next year. As long as he could become a Freedom Envoy as a disciple of His Holiness, he would be able to become a Freedom Envoy. This was tantamount to truly standing at the peak of the Freedom Federation's younger generation. Han Chi's thoughts were extremely good, and he even had the idea of pleasing the Goddess of Mercy. However, he didn't know that when the pity god saw Lin Yuan's fist being bitten by the nether bamboo viper, she frowned. The Goddess of Mercy was indifferent to life and death. She used the beautiful life of the skin as a toy to please herself. But now, seeing Black injured, Compassion Goddess's body instinctively gave birth to a feeling of distress and anger. It was a wonderful and special feeling for Goddess Lian's entire life. This was because Lian Xin had never felt this way before. Even the last merman had been killed by the second page revival. Her sacred source life form that possessed the merman bloodline, Her Holiness, had been killed by the Moon Empress. Compassion Goddess Lian Xin only felt anger but not heartache. 7017K. Chapter 1710. Lin Yuan looked at his fist that had been bitten by the nether bamboo viper and shook his fist without a care. Lin Yuan sighed in his heart. It was a Diamond X/Fantasy V Serene Bamboo Viper. As expected of the Freedom Federation's top youths who had poured their entire lives of resources into nurturing this spirit creature. It was completely different from ordinary Diamond X/Fantasy V phase. Otherwise, when he used Xiao Hei's exclusive skill, Spirit Purity Burst, with 80% of his strength, he would not be able to survive. It was impossible for the Serene Bamboo Viper to still move. It had to be known that Lin Yuan now possessed Spirit Chi. Due to the constant evolution of the Spirit Lock spatial zone, it had become purer. The power of the spiritual essence explosion had also increased quite a bit compared to the time at the Great Night Assembly. He was now using 80% of his power to fight a Diamond X/Fantasy V Fae that had been nurtured using ordinary methods. Even if he didn't hammer the Fae to death, it wouldn't be able to move. His first clash with the purple-haired youth had made him realize that he was not as powerful as the purple-haired youth. This purple-haired youth that Yin Lin hadn't given him any information on was a hidden trump card of the Freedom Federation. Since that was the case, that white-haired youth who also had no information on him should also be the Freedom Federation's hidden card. In this way Qianyu, Kaihua, Yanling and Yu Changjian who could interact with sacred source lifeforms. Together with the white-haired youth, the 5 of them formed the best team. At that thought Lin Yuan's heart sank. He knew that in the general execution battle, if possible, he had to try his best not to reveal his trump card. Save as many trump cards as possible for the team to use. Lin Yuan had previously asked the princess to store the Pinnacle Myth 2 Vicious Venom Law. Now, the Vicious Poison Law had been raised to Myth 3. In addition, he had recently absorbed a few world crystals. Coincidentally, there was a poison-type world crystal among them. Therefore, he was no longer afraid of any poison phase below Myth 2. Based on the abilities that the princess had given him, Lin Yuan was now truly immune to poison. Logically speaking, once one was poisoned, the wound would quickly swell. A dreamy blue liquid flowed out of Lin Yuan's injured fist. The liquid happened to be the poison that the nether bamboo viper had injected into Lin Yuan's body. As the life force in his body surged, the wound healed naturally. The transformation of the black palm shocked the Star Web viewers once again. At the same time, the ones who were stunned the longest were the veteran forces and the top forces. He had also recovered from the extreme shock. Logically speaking, the disciples of the veteran forces and the top forces were very knowledgeable, and it was very difficult for them to encounter anything that could surprise them. However, what he saw was too shocking. During the battle between the Moon Empress disciple Lin Yuan and Chef Supreme's disciple, Zhong Zhe in the Great Night Assembly, Lin Yuan's punch was so similar. This kind of ability to rely on the physical body to launch such a powerful attack. There wouldn't be a second person in the entire Radiance Federation. As a result, the audience members who came from veteran and top forces were shocked. He already knew Black's true identity. It was just that no one dared to divulge this information. After Han Chi learned that Black had used some unknown method to become immune to the poison of the Serene Bamboo Viper, suddenly he noticed a faint yellow smoke rising from the beheading general's battle arena. The general's battle arena was completely made of white jade. How could there be dust on the white jade shop? Han Chi suddenly thought of Black's sand-type source-type life form. Thinking of this, Han Chi waved his hand. A 1,000-meter-long giant snake appeared out of thin air in the arena. After this giant snake appeared, it immediately coiled its body and stood up. It protected Han Chi in the middle of the snake's body. At that moment, 3 streams of quicksand drilled through the white jade shop on the general's battle arena. They each grabbed the feet of the 2 independent 100 sequence members, as well as the seriously injured Serene Bamboo Viper. With this flow of sand as the center, 3 yellow sand vortexes formed. The yellow sand constantly surged, clearly wanting to pull the 2 independent 100 sequence members and the Serene Bamboo Viper into the sea of sand. Everyone knew very well that once they were pulled into the sea of sand, what would be the outcome? These 2 independent 100 sequence members had already summoned their main phase. They wished they could use all kinds of means. However, the strongest main phase of these 2 independent 100 sequence members was only Diamond 2/Fantasy 3. Such strength was nurtured with the best method, and it was a Diamond X/Fantasy V source sand. It simply had no ability to resist. It was understandable that Han Chi didn't protect these 2 independent 100 sequence members. However, if he remained indifferent when the 2 of them were in danger, after the 2 of them were killed, the first general battle arena would be considered the Radiance's side's victory. Therefore, Han Chi had to save these 2 independent 100 sequence members. Han Chi yelled angrily. Floating Earth Serpent, use exclusive skill, Earth Vein Control. Upon hearing Han Chi's instructions, the 1,000-meter-long giant serpent, which was originally coiled up, suddenly let out a roar. A noble aura emitted from this serpent's body. This noble aura caused Lin Yuan's expression to change abruptly. Just like butterfly species phase, they had 3 supreme bloodlines. These butterfly species phase with the 3 supreme bloodlines had an extremely strong suppression on other butterfly species phase. Among the snake phase there were also 7 supreme bloodlines. These 7 supreme bloodlines could be considered 7 kinds of branches. For example, his master, the Moon Empress, had 2 soaring serpents, 1 green and 1 white. They were one of the 7 snake phase bloodlines. The feathered serpent bloodline was formed after the bloodline had evolved again. At present, the purple-haired youth called the floating earth serpent belonged to the bright serpent bloodline. The bright serpent could be proficient in one attribute and use it to the extreme. The floating earth serpent was obviously a snake species fae that controlled the earth. After the floating earth serpent used its exclusive skill, Earth Vein Control. Indeed, Lin Yuan found that the source sand's movements were blocked. It even lost the ability to continue producing sand in the earth. This was because the floating earth serpent seemed to have become the center of the earth. With its bloodline as the center, it controlled the earth elements underground. However, Han Chi had made a mistake. The source sand could not only produce sand in the earth, but it could also produce close guard sand by consuming spiritual power. Sensing that Han Chi wanted to summon the heavily injured dark bamboo viper back, Lin Yuan sneered. The corners of his mouth under the silver mask hooked up into a sneer. Lin Yuan immediately ordered the source sand. He let the source sand use its exclusive skill Metal Consume Manifestation to extract the red lotus soft gold, which had not been used much in battle. Immediately after, the yellow sand that had originally entangled the dark bamboo viper suddenly turned into red crystal threads. The moment these crystal threads attached to the dark bamboo viper let out a mournful wail. In fact, after seeing that the dark bamboo viper had such a fast speed, Lin Yuan became greedy for the dark bamboo viper. He was now ready to implement his plan. 7017K. Chapter 1711. Ever since his source sand had been upgraded to Diamond X/Fantasy V, the source sand had become much stronger. The exclusive skill, Sand Spirit Acceptance, was getting stronger and stronger. However, there were no phase or dimensional lifeforms suitable for spirit acceptance. His exclusive skill, Sand Spirit Acceptance, was still empty. This caused the source sand, which didn't have any skills and only had 2 exclusive skills, to have half of its abilities sealed. However, there was nothing he could do. It was the alien insect, the heart-penetrating iron line, that Lin Yuan had been using to accept the spirit sand. However, the heart-penetrating iron line had already been perfectly replaced by the crystalline threads of the red lotus soft gold that the source sand had devoured through Metal Consume Manifestation. He finally found a phase suitable for the source sand's grain spirit acceptance. It was the purple-haired youth's Diamond X/Fantasy V Serene Bamboo Viper. Firstly, the speed of the Serene Bamboo Viper was fast. Secondly, the Serene Bamboo Viper was extremely poisonous. The Nether Bamboo Viper's venom was harmless to him. However, the Nether Bamboo Viper's venom was enough to kill any Fae of the same grade. In fact, he could even face Suzerain/Mythi Faes that were stronger than him. As long as the Serene Bamboo Viper pierced the other party's body, it would be able to put the other party to death. He admired the Serene Bamboo Viper's 3 abilities and 1 exclusive skill very much. Snake Body Wind Transformation allows the user to merge their body with the wind, increasing their speed while also concealing themselves. The armor-piercing venomous fangs gave the Serene Bamboo Viper's fangs a certain armor-piercing effect. Although the bite force of the Serene Bamboo Viper was not very strong, it was unable to cause damage to the target through the snake's mouth. However, it could only press its snake-like mouth on the target's skin and armor. The snake's teeth could pierce through the target's defense and spray venom into the target's body. The third skill, Puppet Control, used poison to control the opponent's mind. Moreover, it could continuously inject poison into the target's body, constantly controlling the target. This kind of ability was not very effective in the arena battles. But in a real battle in the wild, as long as this ability bit anyone on the enemy's side, they would be killed. In a situation where the enemy did not understand the effects of the snake venom, it was equivalent to burying a spy in the enemy's team who would listen to him 100%. As for the Nether Bamboo Viper's exclusive skill, it was all snake species phase that used poison as their main method. It was the exclusive skill that everyone dreamed of. Poison spread. Objects infected by the toxin would become the host of the toxin. It could spread the poison through the infected body and infect other targets. Snake species phase had a characteristic, and that was venom. As a single target attack, snake species phase were usually more venomous. Snake phase that spat out poisonous mist to attack in groups were less toxic. Right now, the Serene Bamboo Viper was able to use its exclusive skill, Poison Spread. It could turn a single poison attack into an AoE attack in another way. Under normal circumstances, snake venom was not contagious after infecting an object. This was common sense. In a real life and death battle, the enemy could easily be infected by the venom of the Serene Bamboo Viper while taking care of their teammates. In addition, the Serene Bamboo Viper's skill, Puppet Control. In other words, he could control the effects of the entire team by injecting poison into one person. With such abilities and exclusive skills, the Serene Bamboo Viper could be considered a Fae with great strategic significance. However, if such a Fae was used in the arena battle, it would be extremely difficult. It was truly overkill. When Han Chi discovered that he had ordered the floating world's bright serpent to use its exclusive skill, Earth Vein Control, the floating world's bright serpent was stunned. It had indeed seized control of most of the sand grains in the land. However, there was still a small portion of the sand that it could not control. It immediately knew that these sand grains that it could not control were the main body of that sand-type source-type life form. The source sand's main body was currently attacking the two independent 100 sequence members in the arena. Looking at the two liberal 100 sequence members who were exhausted from defending, yet unable to put up any resistance under the attacks, Lin Fan felt a chill run down his spine. He could not help but be furious. Black had used an artifact to take away the two Radiance 100 sequence members. Those two Radiance 100 sequence members were still alive. Therefore, even if Black was the only one in the arena, it would not be considered a loss. However, if the two liberal 100 sequence members on his side were to die, he would lose the first round of the general execution battle. Han Chi clearly wanted to preserve his spiritual power as much as possible. However, he had no choice but to consume his spiritual power to protect these two burdens. Han Chi yelled angrily. Before the floating earth snake, do you really think that you can rely on a sand-type elemental source-type life form to do whatever you want? In front of the floating earth snake, no matter what earth-type mutant you are, you have to submit to the floating earth snake's control. While speaking, Han Chi circulated the spiritual power in his body. The floating earth snake, which was circling in front of Han Chi, raised its head and hissed again. The entire land could not help but tremble. The entire land seemed to be reset by some kind of mighty force. The entire White Jade Shop's general execution stage had been smashed into pieces. The 200-meter deep coating was reversed and stirred. At this moment, Lin Yuan's source sand formed the sand guards. They were evenly distributed in a space of 5,000 square meters and 200 meters underground. The attack that Han Chi had made the floating earth snake unleash could be said to be a fundamental restraint on the source sand. Han Chi stood on the floating earth snake's body and looked down at Lin Yuan. It was as if he was mocking Lin Yuan's incompetence. Right at this moment, Han Chi heard a light, pleasant and cold voice ring out. It's true that you protected two independent 100 sequence members, but do you not care about your fate? Han Chi had previously discovered that he could not use the contract to keep the Dark Bamboo Viper in his spiritual spatial zone. In order to save the two independent 100 sequence members, Han Chi did not have time to care about the Dark Bamboo Viper's situation. Upon hearing Black's words, Han Chi hurriedly looked at the Dark Bamboo Viper. Han Chi saw that the Dark Bamboo Viper had been wrapped into a cocoon by the red crystal silk. The Dark Bamboo Viper was in extreme mental pain. Han Chi immediately recognized the red crystal thread. What it was? Red Lotus Soft Gold. How could there be Red Lotus Soft Gold? After a brief shock, Han Chi was about to summon a new Fey to destroy the cocoon formed by the Red Lotus Soft Gold. At that moment, several chainswords shot out from the ground. These chainswords actually formed a huge black box through their own free assembly. The Dark Bamboo Viper, which was wrapped by the Red Lotus Soft Gold, was sealed in this black box. At that moment, over a dozen black diamond-shaped objects suddenly flew out from the ground and landed on this black box. There was a violent explosion. The explosion at such a close distance only left a small dent on the black box. Back then, Hu Quan had used the radium-uranium steel to make the training room walls for the Myth 2 Mother of Bloodbath and the Myth 3 Endless Summer. 7017K. Chapter 1712. As long as Myth Breed Phase paid attention, there was no problem at all in making a move in a house made of radium-uranium steel. Those diamond-shaped objects just now could blast a dent on the surface of radium-uranium steel. It was enough to prove the power of those attacks. After the Earth was reset, the source sand had really lost control of the surrounding environment. At that moment, the near-guard sand formed a vortex again. It swallowed the black box made of chain swords into the vortex. Then a suppressed snake cry echoed in the quicksand vortex. Han Chi knelt on one knee on the floating earth snake's body. It was as if something in his mind had shattered, and his spiritual energy was in unbearable pain. As for Han Chi, the fetters between him and the Dark Bamboo Viper had completely disappeared. Phase could be said to be the lifeblood of a spirit chi professional. The Dark Bamboo Viper's death immediately made Han Chi go crazy. At that moment, Lin Yuan was using Morbius True Data to investigate the huge snake that Han Chi had summoned called the Floating Earth Snake. Fey name: Floating Earth Snake, Fey species, Ancient Giant Snake / Bright Snake, Fey grade, Diamond 10 out of 10, Fey type, Earth, Fey quality, Fantasy V abilities: Frowny Face Drill Explosion. Compress the soil and sand in the earth to form an earth drill and then detonate it to deal damage to targets within the range. Snake's Pride. When attacked, in a seriously injured state or suffering from negative effects or curses, one can cut off the snake's vitality to reduce one's size and heal injuries. Sand Flow Wild Attraction. By devouring the sand flow and absorbing the earth attribute energy in the sand flow, one can increase one's strength for a short time and build a layer of sand-like armor on the surface of one's body. Snake Queen's Guard. Expel 3 snake eggs that are being nurtured in the abdomen. These 3 snake eggs can absorb earth element energy and hatch into snake guards with the bright snake bloodline and have the same combat power as the main body. Earth Reset. In an instant, all of the power within the earth is gathered together, and then evenly distributed across a certain area of land. During this process, any power that one can control can be extracted and added to oneself. Bright Snake God. Burn one's own bloodline, sacrifice one's own flesh, and under the premise of burning the false nucleus, one can temporarily break through to the next level. If the contestant is willing to sacrifice himself, one can break through to the next level. Exclusive skill: Frowny Face Earth Vein Control. Injecting one's bloodline into the earth, transforming the earth vein underground into a snake vein. The snake vein has a stronger defense than the user, and it can always be controlled by the user. Snake World Floating. Opens up a gate to the snake world and draws in a large number of earth attribute wild snakes. While the main body is protecting an object, the main body can share its power with these wild snakes. Lin Yuan's face behind the mask revealed a surprised expression. Lin Yuan simply did not know what to say about this earthly bright snake. In a way, it was the strongest defense-type fantasy breed Fae that Lin Yuan had ever seen. Moreover, this kind of defense also had extremely strong offensive power. The earth had just turned over, and the source sand had been banished to various places in this land. It must have been the earthly bright snake that had used its platinum ability, Earth Reset. The one that had just blasted a groove on the radium-uranium steel surface. It was the normal ability Drill Explosion. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this earthly bright snake's second exclusive skill, Snake World Descent, was very compatible with the Class 5 artifact in Han Chi's hand, the Demon Lizard Fang Blade. Each of the wild snakes that appeared in the gate to the snake world could be used as Han Chi's weapon and supply. The most powerful deterrent was the earthly bright snake's diamond ability, Bright Snake God. The bright snake divine connection allowed the bright snake of the floating world to burn its own bloodline and sacrifice its body. It could let its strength break through to the next level. If Han Chi was willing to sacrifice himself, it could let the earthly bright snake break through to the next grade. The double breakthrough could let the earthly bright snake's strength be comparable to that of a Myth 2 Fae in a short time. Such strength had already reached the level of the current Radiance Envoy. After Lin Yuan thoroughly saw the earthly bright snake's data, he did not have any fear. This was because he had used his sacred source life form, the sacred sword-wielding queen. When using the sword skills in the sacred sword state, he could also achieve such strength. Moreover, Lin Yuan's sacred source life form, the sacred sword-wielding queen, had now broken through to Class 4. It had obtained a new function. In the queen state, the function still had a support and defensive effect. However, in the sacred sword state, there was already a stronger killer move. However, Lin Yuan did not have the slightest fear of the earthly bright snake. This did not mean that the Chef Supreme, the Bamboo Monarch, the Moon Empress, or the other Class 4 creation masters were afraid. After understanding the earthly bright snake situation, there was no anxiety or worry on his face. Apart from the Moon Empress, the others did not understand Lin Yuan. Based on common sense, no matter how strong Lin Yuan was, he would not go head-on against a Myth 2 Fae. It had to be known that going head-on against a Myth 2 Fae and being able to hit with the same strength as a Myth 2 Fae were two completely different things. A Myth 2 attack would only take an instant. Every movement of a Myth 2 Fae had the powerful might of a Myth 2 Fae. During the Psi meeting, Lin Yuan had indeed used the sacred source life form to hit with power comparable to a Myth breed Fae. However, the earthly bright snake was one of the 7 supreme snake bloodlines. After its strength reached Myth 2, it would undoubtedly be able to fight above its grade again. Now it seemed that Lin Yuan had made Han Chi lose a Fae and had the upper hand. According to the rules of the general slaying battle, one of the two sides must die in this duel. In other words, if Lin Yuan wanted to win and kill Han Chi, he had to face both Han Chi and the earthly bright snake sacrifice. Even an Emperor-class expert with a Myth 2 Fae would go crazy after Han Chi and the earthly bright snake's sacrifice. He might also be dragged down with him. The Freedom Federation's concern for Lin Yuan was different. Upon seeing Han Chi's fei, the nether bamboo viper died. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, Yu Changjian, and even Qin Yu wore faint smiles on their faces. Only the white-haired boy, Lu O, frowned and was truly concerned about Han Chi. The enraged Han Chi raised his hand. Once again he summoned a big fellow. This big fellow had a pair of huge wings on its back. As this huge fellow hissed, the sky turned completely dark. Thunder rumbled. After seeing this big fellow's true data, Lin Yuan also waved his hand. In the blink of an eye, millions of golden birds surged out from Lin Yuan's raised palm. In an instant, the golden birds were centered around Lin Yuan. It formed a grand scene of 100 birds paying homage. At that moment, 2 or 3 pipa strings sounded as though they came from beyond the sky. 7017K. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.